Chapter 451. But she could also understand the actions of Yinanzu. She was already estranged from Nangang Yingxiu. Now that the old officials had come knocking, Yinanzu knew very well that she should not show her face. It would be best to secretly deal with these people later. However, she also wanted to use them to test Nangang Yingxiu. If Nangang Yingxiu was obedient, she would not mind restoring their master and disciple relationship. Conversely, if Nangang Yingxiu was disobedient, then she, as the master, would not be polite. Master. Nangang Yingxiu felt her sword heart nearly shatter, and her expression grew grim. They are only concerned about Great Liang. I hope master will not blame them. Please let them leave. Yingxiu has no intention of restoring the dynasty. Yinanzu said coldly. So, you will not kill them? Nangang Yingxiu pondered, then shook her head. Yingxiu cannot bring herself to do it. Good, good, good. Indeed a disciple I personally trained. Since you will not kill them, then I, your master, will help you sever this thought. With a clang, the treasured sword was unsheathed. Clang. Nangang Yingxiu swung her sword to block. The old officials were terrified. Yinanzu angrily rebuked. How dare you raise your hand against your master? Nangang Yingxiu looked down. Master, please let them leave. You truly still have ideas in your heart, Yingxiu. Have you forgotten how master nurtured you all these years? Yinanzu's tone softened, beginning to play an emotional card. Yingxiu will not forget, nor dare to forget. But master, these people are merely former officials and descendants of Great Liang. What wrong have they committed? If we slaughter them all today, how would my sword servant mountain be any different from the demonic school? Ha ha ha. Yinanzu laughed in extreme anger. How is it different from the demonic school? You say they should not die, then I ask you, they just insulted my sword servant mountain, and hoped to incite you to restore the dynasty, restarting war, dragging countless people into this new conflict, and making them homeless with broken families. Is this not an act against heaven and the Tao? Is this not a crime? You tell me, should they die? Should they be killed? Nangang Yingxiu was truly no match for Yinanzu. These few sentences indeed carried some weight, especially the insult to Sword Servant Mountain. Just this point alone in the Jianghu would be grounds for execution, and they would certainly be labeled as demonic school fiends before being killed. Old nun, if you have the guts, kill us. The next Jianghu monthly report will expose all your scandals. That is right, if you have the guts, kill us. Several imperial bodyguard simulacrums began to set the rhythm. They were not afraid of death. They could always be repaired later. With them taking the lead, the other old officials and descendants also condemned her. The imperial bodyguard shouted, leading the charge. What insult to Sword Servant Mountain? Which of our words was not true? You are all whores. The Jianghu monthly report has made it very clear. If you have the ability, why do you not go kill those who sell the monthly report? To put it bluntly, you whores of Sword Servant Mountain are nothing but bullies who pick on the weak. If you have the guts, kill us, then go kill the people of the monthly report, then go kill Prince Chu of Great Qian. Do you dare? He. If you dare to touch the Jianghu monthly report even once, if you touch it today, Sword Servant Mountain will be drenched in blood tomorrow. I do not think you dare. How audacious. Yinanzu was furious because what they said was the truth. Who did not know how ruthless Prince Chu was? With just the imperial bodyguard and some new weapons, he directly crushed 300,000 wolf cavalry, then pressed Xiangnan until they sued for peace. Although Sword Servant Mountain had experts, this was not cultivation. Sword Servant Mountain had only one Dao, and climbing it was difficult. But they had those things that could fly, and there was that Gatling Bodhisattva. If it were not for these things, the Jianghu monthly report would have been torn down long ago. The Jianghu monthly report was very fair. In the past few months, every school had been featured in the report, both righteous and demonic, and all had been analyzed. People of the Jianghu also gained a completely new understanding of these schools. For example, Shaolin, not engaging in production, goes without saying. In the financial calculations of the monthly report, monasteries were the wealthiest places among all schools combined. Even all Jianghu schools combined were not as rich as the monasteries. They were veritable mountains of gold and silver. This greatly surprised the people of the Jianghu. Of course, in the end, monasteries were also righteous schools. Even if they had done some dirty deeds in the face of major right and wrong, they at least had a bottom line. Sword Servant Mountain was the same. It could be bad, but it had a bottom line. And having a bottom line meant it was a righteous school. The Taoist school was also commented on for its good and bad. The demonic school was likewise. It had done many bad things, and a few good things, but it had no bottom line in its actions, which highlighted why righteous schools were righteous schools. Thus, the Jianghu monthly report rose to prominence and was very fair, not favoring any one school. The strengths and weaknesses of each school were discussed. This also earned the respect of most Jianghu people. However, if Prince Chu had not been behind the monthly report, it would probably have been jointly dismantled by some schools long ago. Dingling, Guangleng. Yinanzu attacked again. Nangang Yingxiu blocked again. Nangang Yingxiu, do you really intend to stop me? No, should I, your master, now call you Qin Yingxiu, Princess Yingxiu? Yinanzu's face turned green with anger, completely letting loose. Master, please let them go. Nangang Yingxiu still did not explain, only mumbling the same request. Master and disciple looked at each other, neither giving way. But in the end, Yinanzu laughed loudly, though her laughter was somewhat wild. Good, truly a personal disciple I, your master, have trained. After speaking, Yinanzu sheathed her sword and turned to leave. Nangang Yingxiu said, You all should leave too. Your Highness, Princess. Do not call me princess anymore. Great Liang no longer exists. I am just an ordinary Jianghu woman. The old officials cried out. Princess, Great Liang still exists. With you here, with us here, Great Liang has not truly perished. Great Liang had its own noble spirit, yet it was slandered as being militaristic. Your Highness, Princess, our Great Liang suffered so much. The old officials wailed and cried, recounting their grievances. Their implication was that history is written by the victors. After the Xiling dynasty rose, other countries criticized Great Liang in various ways, using all sorts of negative words to describe it, because Great Liang had fought wars everywhere back then. Everyone had clashed with it and was annoyed by it. Conversely, the Xiling dynasty, besides cursing the former Great Liang dynasty, also said some good things about Great Liang. It was not because the Xiling dynasty was so righteous, but because it had to be done that way. Great Liang had to be praised. Otherwise, if Great Liang was too weak, would not Xiling destroying it be like picking on easy targets? Therefore, the stronger Great Liang was, the more face Xiling had, because Great Liang was destroyed by Xiling. In the end, Nangang Yingxiu drove these people out. Meanwhile, Yinanzi was considering how to extract Nangang Yingxiu's last bit of value. Chapter 452. Yinanzi had not yet accepted the position of imperial advisor. For the past few months, she had been left on the shelf to stew. Since Cao Chuan had not returned, no one urged her to go to the capital for a report. But during these months, the reputation of Sword Servant Mountain completely collapsed. Previously, the disciples of Sword Servant Mountain rarely descended the mountain, appearing aloof and superior. Whenever they did descend, it was like fairies visiting the mortal realm, and they were highly revered. However, now, some of the industries beneath Sword Servant Mountain had seen a sharp decline in income. People in the Jianghu avoided them. Those gazes, which they could not avoid, held a hint of amusement and even lust. King Chu, Cao Chuan should be killed. Yinanzi had always wanted to find an opportunity, but unfortunately, Cao Chuan never appeared. No one knew where he had gone. Until now she heard that King Chu had returned. As long as Cao Chuan died, the monthly report would cease to exist. Even if the Great Qian dynasty continued to produce a monthly report, it would not have the same deterrent effect as when King Chu was around. Once he died, and a few more years passed, these matters would slowly fade away. Sword Servant Mountain would still be Sword Servant Mountain. Shaolin would still be Shaolin. Now, it was not just Sword Servant Mountain that wanted Cao Chuan dead. All the major schools actually had this intention, but they did not dare to act rashly. Master. A day later, Yinanzi's expression returned to calm. Yesterday, she was indeed too furious, unable to control herself, and her Dao heart was destroyed. After a day of recovery, her emotions were stable. Yinanzi looked at the disciple she had personally nurtured, feeling a sense of emotion, and shook her head. Yingxiu, the matters of Great Liang in the past had nothing to do with your master. It was the decision of the previous sect master, and no one in Sword Servant Mountain could defy the sect master. Nangang Yingxiu softly said, Yingxiu knows. Yinanzi said, now that your master has become the sect master, I must uphold the decisions of the former sect master. Even if they are wrong, your master must defend them. This concerns the reputation of Sword Servant Mountain, do you understand? Nangang Yingxiu nodded. Yinanzi sighed, and then said, but your master also understands that you must have blame in your heart for Sword Servant Mountain. Do not rush to deny it. Sword Servant Mountain was indeed involved back then, leading to some losses for Great Liang. Although not all of it can be blamed on Sword Servant Mountain, Sword Servant Mountain cannot escape responsibility. You're blaming the former sect master and Sword Servant Mountain is something your master can understand. But you were indeed used by others, including those old officials and former subordinates of Great Liang you met yesterday. There must be imperial bodyguards among them. Since the appearance of the Jianghu monthly report, the entire Jianghu has been in chaos. The clear distinction between right and evil has become increasingly blurred, and good and bad are no longer so obvious. Even ordinary people are wary of us on the righteous path. We, Sword Servant Mountain, are fine. We do not emerge into the world. But the temples in various places have been unlucky. Even the Zen sect's Great Thunder Temple had no choice but to take out vast amounts of incense offerings and distribute them to the surrounding common people, barely suppressing their anger. Other temples are not doing any better. Have you ever considered what Cao Chuan is doing all this for? After a roundabout explanation, Nangang Yingxiu shook her head, somewhat confused. Her sword heart was very firm, and her swordsmanship was not bad. She had also traveled to many places to pay homage to swords, but her heart only contained the sword, not family, country, or the world. Therefore, the things she had seen before were very superficial. Naturally, she could not discern what Cao Chuan intended to do. Yinanzi sighed heavily, he is a demon. First, she defined his nature. Then, she began to analyze. Yinanzi turned into a great deceiver, but her deception also had some logic. The implication of her words was that Cao Chuan was a demon, and his creation of the Jianghu monthly report was not to educate people in the Jianghu about various schools, but to throw the Jianghu into chaos. Because in previous years of the 9 provinces wars, no matter who fought whom, many Jianghu individuals would participate. These individuals possessed considerable personal bravery. Although they did not fight on the battlefield, they were very skilled in defending cities, infiltration, intelligence, and assassination. Some powerful individuals, with a single piece of intelligence or an assassination, could change the direction of a local war. But now with the Jianghu monthly report, the various schools were no longer distinguished between good and bad. They were completely chaotic. The court did not trust them, and the common people did not trust them either. Everyone was wary of them. The great Qian dynasty took the opportunity to gather many Jianghu individuals. This was the purpose of the monthly report. The great Qian dynasty was about to make a move. To put it plainly, the monthly report merely caused chaos in the Jianghu of various countries in the 9 provinces, and confusion in people's hearts, while the great Qian dynasty had made full preparations, and might be about to unify the 9 provinces. How could Nangang Yingxiu understand all this? Upon hearing it, it actually made sense. Yi Nanzu angrily rebuked in a cold voice, Yingxiu, think about it. Once the great Qian dynasty launches a war, coupled with the murderous nature of those imperial bodyguards, how many people will die among the hundreds of millions in the entire 9 provinces? How many of them will have their families broken, their loved ones separated, and be forced to resort to cannibalism? As Yi Nanzu spoke to the emotional part, she even shed tears, showing compassion for humanity. Nangang Yingxiu was also frightened. Indeed, Sword Servant Mountain cultivated disciples using the grand narrative, emphasizing the preciousness of life and world peace. Once war broke out, Sword Servant Mountain would have to step forward, choosing an emperor on behalf of heaven, to bring peace back to the 9 provinces, all for the sake of the myriad common people. This was great compassion. Yi Nanzu angrily said, so Cao Chuan is a demon. At this time, Ye Qingrong of the Meitian sect is still the imperial advisor of the great Qian dynasty. The entire great Qian dynasty is too filled with malevolence, wantonly slaughtering 300,000 border troops, and actively provoking the Xiongnan War. Yingxiu, whether this world falls into chaos or not depends on you. Yi Nanzu finally revealed her ultimate goal. It was to have Nangang Yingxiu approach Cao Chuan, ostensibly using love, by offering herself to the demon, to prevent Cao Chuan from launching a unification war. In reality, it was to have Nangang Yingxiu get close to Cao Chuan, and if there was an opportunity, she could catch him off guard and kill him. As for how Nangang Yingxiu would escape after killing him, that was not Yi Nanzu's concern. After all, once Nangang Yingxiu left Sword Servant Mountain to approach Cao Chuan, Sword Servant Mountain would actively announce the revocation of Nangang Yingxiu's saintess status, and expel her from the sect. Sword Servant Mountain would not bear any karma for this matter. Finally, after 2 days, Yi Nanzu produced many pieces of evidence, including a lot of data on the casualties of war, how many people died, how many were displaced, and how many children were homeless. In short, it was heartbreaking to see and tear-jerking to hear. Nangang Yingxiu had been conditioned since childhood, truly believing herself to be a bodhisattva. With compassion for humanity, she finally agreed. Subsequently, Nangang Yingxiu left Sword Servant Mountain. That same day, news spread throughout the Jianghu that Nangang Yingxiu had been expelled from Sword Servant Mountain. The Jianghu was in an uproar. Nangang Yingxiu, who was solely devoted to the sword, and had limited experience, was not foolish at all. She knew this was offering oneself to the demon, a standard operation of Sword Servant Mountain. The previous saintess was the same. At that time, she was still young, truly believing that the previous saintess had betrayed Sword Servant Mountain and chosen the demonic sect. At that time, her little sisters, who were like her, were all filled with righteous indignation, regretting their lack of skill, otherwise they would surely go and destroy the demonic sect. And this time it was her turn. She guessed the girls in the sect also hated the demonic sect and hated themselves, but she still agreed, repaying the kindness of upbringing over the years, and after this, there would be no further entanglement. Of course, in her heart, she also did not wish to see war. The common people were truly suffering. This was also the reason she agreed in the end, even though she knew it was a ploy. Chapter 453. The back garden had been set up for several months, and imperial bodyguard informants were everywhere. Wealth moves hearts. Coupled with coercion and enticement, the internal structure of Sword Servant Mountain was not without its own eyes and ears. Even if Yi Nanzu and Nangang Yingxiu were speaking in the saintess's room, or the sect master's meditation chamber, it would still be recorded. This was high-tech surveillance, a dimensionality reduction strike. Therefore, upon hearing that Nangang Yingxiu was prepared to offer herself to the demon, Cao Chuan's face showed an expression of acceptance. This was Sword Servant Mountain, after all. If they could kill you, they would. If they could not, they would call you a demon and send you a girl. Sending a girl had 2 benefits. It would either make you indulge in beauty, or they would find an opportunity to assassinate you. The second benefit was that if they could not assassinate you, they would shake hands and make peace. They would think, I have already sent you a girl. How dare you turn around and mess with me? Ultimately, Sword Servant Mountain was the girl's maiden family. This put them in an invincible position. However, Old Cow noticed a problem. It was the issue of the heavenly Tao's consciousness. Although the back garden did not belong to the main plane, and would not produce any child of destiny, this was a branch world in a dual transmigration story. Therefore, the universe's heavenly Tao in this world, and the one on Blue Star were of the same lineage, sharing a common origin. Now that the heavenly Tao's consciousness had changed, Old Cow was the biggest beneficiary. Thus, the matter of offering oneself to the demon fell to Cao Chuan to be the protagonist. If it were before, it would most likely have been Lu Qing's turn to enjoy such a plot. Cao Chuan was now a genuine son of heaven. The longer the time, the more luck the son of heaven contained, and the greater the benefits for Old Cow. Hey, Cao Chuan chuckled and shook his head. He was a true villain, not a child of destiny like Lu Qing. If Sword Servant Mountain played the game of offering oneself to the demon, then it would truly be offering oneself to the demon. After Nangang Yingxiu had finished serving the demon, Old Cao would still have to flatten Sword Servant Mountain, as there were too many girls inside, and he had coveted them for a long time. Most importantly, daring to plot against a prince was no different from rebellion. Turning Sword Servant Mountain into his beauty training camp was the proper way. No school in the Jianghe was more suitable than Sword Servant Mountain. Other schools, even those primarily composed of women like Ime, still had male disciples. Only Sword Servant Mountain was exclusively beautiful women. Beauties were also a resource. The more beautiful a woman, the rarer she was. Possessing a treasure makes one a criminal. Old Cao had to protect these young girls. They were only brainwashed from a young age and were victims. The fault lay with the high-level officials of Sword Servant Mountain, especially Yi Nanzu, who had previously defied an imperial decree, and even showed a cold shoulder to Cao Chuan, tossing the decree aside. Old Cao had always remembered this account. He adhered to one principle, which was to remember a great grudge clearly. Did Yi Nanzu really think she was a fairy, daring to contend with imperial power? She did not know how she was going to die. Even the founding ancestral master of Sword Servant Mountain, Fairy Lotus, was merely a maidservant by birth. For Sword Servant Mountain to be so arrogant was absurd. Yingxiu greets your highness. Seeing Nangang Yingxiu again, this was their second meeting. Her surroundings had changed. She was no longer the saintess of Sword Servant Mountain, but had changed her name to Qin Yingxiu. After she left the sect, the old officials heard the news and insisted on following her to serve. The name Nangang was given to her by Sword Servant Mountain. Since she had been publicly expelled, she had to revert to her ancestral surname. Before Old Cao could speak, Meng Yu spoke up with a hint of reproach and a flash of resentment in her beautiful eyes. Junior sister Yingxiu, you made me lose a lot. Facing Qin Yingxiu's confusion, Meng Yu casually explained that she had made a bet with his highness. She had said that junior sister Yingxiu had an innate sword bone, soaring arrogance, and no heart for national or family hatred, only seeking the Tao of the sword. Therefore, even if she left Sword Servant Mountain, she would not get involved in matters like the restoration of Great Liang. Alas, I miscalculated. I did not expect Yingxiu Shija to ultimately be unable to let go of national and family hatred. Nangang Yingxiu's heart trembled. Meng Yu understood her. She should have been like that, but she still accepted the sect's final arrangement for her, which was to offer herself to the demon. As for the restoration of Great Liang, she actually did not take it seriously at all. She simply could not refuse these old officials, so she let them follow. The old officials had told her these past 2 days that with the imperial bodyguard helping them, restoration was hopeful. This was one of the reasons Nangang Yingxiu kept them, because she heard the old officials say that as long as she reverted to the Qin surname, they would help establish a new Southern Liang legitimate government as the foundation for restoration. This was an opportunity to get close to Cao Chuan. Qin Yingxiu took a deep breath, ignoring Meng Yu, and looked at Cao Chuan. Your Highness, I heard you can help us establish Southern Liang and support our restoration. I did say that. However, it depends on whether you have that perseverance and determination. Yingxiu has it. Qin Yingxiu nodded solemnly. This girl really could not act. The setting and character relationships all tested a person's emotional expression. What kind of words should be said in what kind of scene, and what meaning should be expressed in what kind of character relationship, all required careful consideration. A saintess who sought immortality, and the Tao suddenly wanting to restore a country was too abrupt and illogical. Her grasp of human nature was too weak. If she were even a little smarter, she would have directly stated her purpose upon arrival, saying she was there to offer herself to the demon. After all, the monthly report was Old Cao's doing. How could Old Cao not know what Sword Servant Mountain was like? If she had directly said she was there to offer herself to the demon, given Old Cao's displayed arrogance and invincible posture, he would inevitably not back down for the sake of his reputation. He would not drive her away, much less kill her. Otherwise, it would seem that Old Cao was afraid of Sword Servant Mountain's methods. Furthermore, it would have attracted more of Old Cao's attention. Unfortunately, this girl was truly ignorant of human nature. Besides, what was the point of her making a solemn declaration here? She wanted to restore a country, not him. Her declaration was useless. That is good. Cao Chuan chuckled and stood up. Yinu, this girl is yours. Take a good look at her perseverance and determination. If her perseverance and determination are not enough, drive her out of the prince's manor. Also, do not forget you lost. Prepare things tonight, I will come over. Meng Yu lightly chided. Your Highness. This sound did not make Old Cao numb yet, but Qin Yingxiu felt a jolt of numbness first. This was Meng Yu, her old rival. She was far too flirtatious. Chapter 454. From the moment she could remember, Qin Yingxiu knew that her opponent was the saintess of the Mei Tian sect, Meng Yu, the personal disciple of Ye Qingrong. This was fate. They fought from the acquired realm to the innate realm, and then to the Grandmaster realm. They were evenly matched. Well, to be precise, Qin Yingxiu should have been a bit stronger, winning more often than losing. Although every time Meng Yu would act delicate and cute, and always address her as junior sister, she was never serious. But this was the first time Qin Yingxiu had seen Meng Yu in such a state. Even the last time they met, she knew what Cao Chuan and Meng Yu were doing inside the room, but it was behind a door, so she had not seen it with her own eyes. A fleeting thought passed. Cao Chuan left directly, and Meng Yu smiled as she scrutinized Qin Yingxiu. Junior sister Yingxiu, we are finally family now. I have already left the Meitian sect, and you have also been expelled from the Sword Servant Mountain. Next, we will serve the prince together. Now we really are sisters. Qin Yingxiu's sword heart trembled slightly. I just want to restore my kingdom. No, not like this with you. Meng Yu chuckled, stepping forward to examine Qin Yingxiu. If it were before, they would start fighting upon meeting, making such close observation impossible. Meng Yu clicked her tongue. I never thought junior sister's skin would be actually so smooth and delicate. It seems Sword Servant Mountain really has some methods for cultivating women. Besides the immortal spring, there must be various precious medicines, right? To be able to keep a fairy like junior sister, who often endures the elements, in her most beautiful form, they truly put in a lot of effort. The monthly report was right. You, or rather, now it should be said, their Sword Servant Mountain, is really a place for cultivating courtesans, going to great lengths for beauty. If they had used that effort for the righteous path, our demonic sect would have been wiped out long ago. Sword Servant Mountain has a spring. It is said to be the immortal spring left behind by the sword god after his ascension, and it is also a kind of hot spring. Any personal disciple who goes out to gain experience in the outside world must enter the immortal spring to soak their body. After returning to the sect, it is said to settle true qi, allowing one to improve strength and realm. But after each soak, the skin becomes even better than before. Over time, people become whiter and more beautiful. This matter was also written in the monthly report. Previously, even the disciples of Sword Servant Mountain were unaware of the true purpose of the immortal spring, but now, the entire Jianghe knows. However, very few people have actually seen the immortal spring with their own eyes. Even internal disciples of Sword Servant Mountain cannot see it. Only personal disciples have this honor. Junior sister, you really cannot lie. I still like your former sword-like appearance, where the sword was you, and you were the sword. But now, you are tainted with too much worldly qi, and you have lost that clear sword heart feeling from before. Your realm might even drop because of it. You say you want to restore your kingdom, but are you the kind of person who looks back at the past? Those who seek the sword, what they seek is nothing more than to move forward courageously. When do they need to look back at the past? Moreover, let alone senior sister me, even the prince has seen through your insincerity, and is too lazy to say anything more to you, entrusting you to me for education. The monthly report makes it very clear that Sword Servant Mountain's methods are nothing more than this. If we can win, we fight. If we cannot, we send the saintess to offer herself to the devil. Now you have been expelled from the sect, and have come to the prince on your own initiative. Is this not offering yourself to the devil? Do you think your little tricks can deceive the prince? So I say, junior sister, you really cannot lie. Meng Yu's few words shattered Qin Yingxiu, not only because she was exposed, but also because of the issue with her sword heart. She had felt something was wrong recently. Her sword heart was unstable. Forget about progress in cultivation. Not falling in realm was already due to her sufficiently strong foundation. If it were an ordinary person in her position, their sword heart would probably have shattered when the monthly report revealed her true identity. What a beauty. I even envy your skin. Meng Yu reached out, her cool fingertips slowly tracing her chin. Qin Yingxiu only felt those fingertips like blades, cutting through her heart. She instinctively took a step back. Meng Yu withdrew her hand, sneering. How can you offer yourself to the devil like this? It seems your master, Yinanzu, did not have time to teach you these things, and then plans could not keep up with changes, so she could only let you try. Given Yinanzu's understanding of you, she must have known you could not handle this important task. So, her sending you here was nothing more than an apology to the prince. Do you believe that if the prince gives your master, Yinanzu, another chance, a chance to become the imperial advisor, this time Yinanzu would absolutely not throw the imperial decree on the table, nor would she leave so forcefully? Forget it. No matter how much I say, you might not believe it. Now you have two choices. One is to let the prince see your determination and perseverance properly. The other is, I will have you sent out of the mansion. Where you go and what you do from now on will have nothing to do with the prince's mansion. If there is a chance to meet again in the Jianghe in the future, let us sisters drink and chat then. Having finished speaking, Meng Yu sat back in the comfortable armchair, picked up her teacup, and took a sip of tea. Being with Cao Chuan, she would always subconsciously pick up some of his hobbies and actions. Then she put down the teacup, observing her former old rival with interest. Qin Yingxiu's expression at this moment no longer held the composure she had earlier. Her face was complex, and her heart was even less at peace. Since she had been exposed, then could she only leave? But where would she go after leaving? Should she return to Sword Servant Mountain? Qin Yingxiu herself rejected this outcome. She could not possibly go back. Moreover, she was only a bit naive, a bit ignorant of social etiquette, not that she was stupid. A stupid person could not become a grandmaster at this age. She was also a favored daughter of heaven. So, many of the things Meng Yu said earlier were unpleasant, but she knew they were true. For example, Yinanzu sending her to offer herself to the devil might not necessarily be about wanting her to do anything specific, but rather more like a subtle apology, to save face. Yinanzu simply wanted to give the prince the best saintess of Sword Servant Mountain, and all past grievances would be wiped clean. That was roughly the meaning. After all, if the monthly report continued like this, Sword Servant Mountain would truly go bankrupt. Currently, Sword Servant Mountain's external industries were seeing increasingly worse income, and its reputation was becoming more and more scandalous. This was not even Cao Chuan truly making a move. If he were to truly act, could Sword Servant Mountain withstand the Imperial bodyguard? If you cannot win, you concede. This was also an old tradition of Sword Servant Mountain. Now, do not even ask about the Dao. Who has the mood for that? Setting aside her mood, just her personality, Qin Yingxiu was also a bit stubborn, a bit unyielding, a bit rigid. So, since she had decided to offer herself to the devil and repay Sword Servant Mountain's kindness, she could not retreat anymore. I am not leaving. Qin Yingxiu made her decision. Meng Yu's expression remained unchanged, as if she had already guessed she would choose this. Meng Yu slowly rose. Then come with me. It just so happens I lost a bet, so I will start by teaching you from this matter how to show your determination and how to cultivate your willpower. These are things you cannot learn out there. Chapter 455. The wager for losing was a sword dance. Meng Yu's previous sword dance was extremely captivating, but it contained the technique of bewitching the world to confuse the heart and mind, and it lacked sincerity. Therefore, the wager was to sincerely perform a dance for old Cao. Sincerity is mainly reflected in the attire. The less material, the more sincere the heart. Of course, this was nothing more than playful banter between a young couple. She was not dancing outside, and only old Cao could appreciate it. Imagine a dance similar to the heavenly demon dance, paired with very revealing clothing, holding a soft sword. That feeling had a unique flavor. Now, there was also Qin Yingxiu. Meng Yu had told Qin Yingxiu how to show her resolve and willpower, and then Qin Yingxiu's Dao heart had shattered. It was just like the seemingly broken pieces of fabric before her, shattered into countless fragments. Was this truly meant to be clothing? Honestly, even in modern times, not every woman could openly accept this, let alone in a world with an ancient setting. Qin Yingxiu usually wore very conservative undergarments. She did not care about the fabric of her clothes or their aesthetic appeal. As long as they were wearable and durable, that was enough. Because she used to travel on foot, her only requirement was durability. This is not acceptable. How can I wear this? Why not? Meng Yu chuckled, a playful glint in her eyes. She was a possessor of villainous factors, so she enjoyed corrupting good people, especially when she saw her former rival's face flushed with anger, daring not to speak. It made her even happier. Serving the devil with one's body. Don't you know what that means? Your senior Xiaoxin from the previous generation even bore a son for our demon sect's demon lord, Meng Yu said with a smile. Qin Yingxiu was speechless. She knew about this without needing the monthly report to tell her. The sect master once used this incident to educate them, making them even more hostile towards the demon sect. It was just that back then, they did not know the meaning of serving the devil with one's body. Such an act can be done, but it cannot be spoken of. Otherwise, the entire Jianghu would know they were merely using a noble facade to hide their true nature. No one was truly nobler than anyone else. At most, the women of Sword Servant Mountain knew martial arts, so people did not dare to say it to their faces. If they did not know martial arts, Sword Servant Mountain would probably be filled with patrons by now, with queues stretching into the next year. Do not worry, junior sister, I were these two. Who told me I lost the bet? A gambler must accept their losses. Even our demon sect knows this rule. Surely a fairy of the righteous path like you would not be ignorant, would you? Since you have chosen this path, either walk it to the end, or turn back. Junior sister, why the grim expression? You make it sound like someone is forcing you. The prince's mansion gate is over there. If you truly do not wish to, our prince will absolutely not force you. I will have someone escort you out. It was both a provocation and a challenge. Before long, Qin Yingxiu's blushing face suddenly cooled. I will wear it. Qin Yingxiu seemed to have realized something. Her realm instantly improved a little. Meng Yu watched in secret amazement. As expected of the strongest saintess of Sword Servant Mountain in this generation, her heart and mind almost crumbled under such repeated attacks. But she actually achieved enlightenment. Meng Yu understood clearly and could also comprehend it. For a swordsman like Qin Yingxiu, the person is the sword, and the heart is also the sword. Conversely, she did not care much about her physical appearance. No matter how beautiful her exterior, beauty would eventually fade with age. If Qin Yingxiu cared about her physical appearance, she would not have traveled throughout the 9 provinces like an ascetic monk, seeking the Tao and paying homage to swords everywhere. Along this journey, her realm might not have improved much, but the tempering of her heart was unparalleled. From this, it could also be seen that Qin Yingxiu did not care about her appearance. Her heart stabilized, and she seemed to have understood that the body is like a precious sword. As for what the outer scabbard looks like, it does not really matter. Then, the clothing also seemed irrelevant. Congratulations, junior sister Yingxiu, Meng Yu said softly. After dinner, the 2 saintesses, one from the righteous path, and one from the demonic path, performed a dance for the prince. Cao Chuan was also somewhat dumbfounded, not expecting Qin Yingxiu to adapt so quickly. She acted like an experienced Jianghu veteran, without blushing or panting, performing with flair. Although she lacked Meng Yu's bewitching gaze, her cold expression and eyes, combined with the professional dance attire, had an indescribable charm. Clang, clang, clang. The 2 women's dances were different, but they coordinated very well. Their swords occasionally clashed, integrating into the music as pleasant drumbeats. Cao Chuan gradually became immersed, drinking wine and enjoying the dance. He felt his eyes were not enough to capture all the beautiful moments. Ding. Plot settlement in progress. Plundered luck from Child of Destiny Lu Qing, Villain luck plus 880 million. This was the old calculation method. Stripping the halo was equivalent to killing. Killing Lu Qing was worth 50 million, and breaking the halo doubled it to 100 million. When Lu Qing first appeared, Cao Chuan had already tricked him out of 400% of his halo. There were also various detailed calculations, for blood sacrifices, and so on. All the miscellaneous calculations added up to over 800 million. Of course, at this point, these hundreds of millions were mere trifles for old Cao. With over 50 billion, he simply could not spend it all. There would be wars in 2 more planes, and hundreds of billions in luck value would be easily acquired. 800 million truly was not worth mentioning now. His heart did not even accelerate for a second. But after all the halos were shattered, there was a lottery draw. This was one of the things that could still make old Cao happy at this stage. Perhaps this was the last lottery draw. Cao Chuan's face was serious and pious. He hoped for a big win this last time. Although old Cao lacked nothing now, he would not mind having an extra trump card, or a new method. Who would complain about having too many trump cards? Cao Chuan reached out and pulled the women closer, a bowl in each hand, borrowing their luck. He thought, draw. A flashy roulette will begin spinning in his mind. Spinning, spinning, spinning. This time, old Cao did not urge the system. He let it spin. It was the last time, after all. Before, old Cao would get annoyed if it spun for a few extra seconds, wishing it would be faster. But now, perhaps because it was the last draw, old Cao felt a bit reluctant. This is human nature. Da-da-da. The pointer of the turntable slowly decelerated, finally flashing past a 50% off mall consumption card, then flashing past a 10% off mall consumption card. Then it flashed past a super weapon. Finally, it flashed past a Star Destroyer. And at the very, very end, it finally stopped. A golden interface appeared. Immortal rank cultivation technique. Super awesome invincible yellow Emperor Sutra. Is this name legitimate? Cao Chuan instantly received the content and introduction of this cultivation technique. He quickly realized that this name truly was legitimate. Chapter 456. Let us assume that the place I am in is the main universe. Outside the main universe, there are countless parallel universes, all kinds of them, similar yet not entirely the same. In some parallel universes, there are also children of destiny. Some are strong, and some are weak. The weak can be easily destroyed. The strong can effortlessly destroy a world. The predecessor of this immortal rank cultivation technique was the innate cultivation technique of a child of destiny. The reason it has this seemingly unconventional name is due to a long process. This cultivation technique was originally called the Yellow Emperor's Inner Classic. That is right. It is the kind of cultivation technique most favored by children of destiny in various parallel universes. It is the Yellow Emperor's Inner Classic that speaks of managing 3,000 women and ascending to immortality in broad daylight. Later, this child of destiny became formidable in the immortal realm, continuously improving his strength and collecting various immortal rank cultivation techniques from the upper, middle, and lower 9 heavens. This child of destiny had a special gift, which was fusion. He could use several yellow grade weapons to fuse into a profound grade weapon, and then fuse profound grade into earth grade. As long as the quantity was sufficient, even trash could be fused into heaven grade cultivation techniques, heaven grade medicinal pills, and heaven grade weapons. Ultimately, this the Yellow Emperor's Inner Classic, after fusing and absorbing 38,000 earth grade and heaven grade cultivation techniques, became what it is now. The child of destiny was also quite playful. He could not think of a name that matched this cultivation technique, so he renamed it the super awesome invincible Emperor Scripture. Looking at it this way, does this name not seem very proper? It seems only this name can more directly and clearly demonstrate the power of the cultivation technique. Ah! A cry of pain came from beside him. Old Cao was a bit excited and instinctively squeezed hard. Qin Yingxiu slowly opened her eyes. For the next 3 days, they did not leave the house. Old Cao was not a man who had just tasted the forbidden fruit, but when faced with a woman like Qin Yingxiu, old Cao knew he had to use the simplest method to break down all her masks and defenses. Sweet words and gentle companionship were minor methods, incapable of truly shaking her sword heart. No matter how gentle he was to her, it would not be as effective as her single sword strike from the west. Reversing the plot, she was the destined heroine. If old Cao was not here, it is likely Lu Qing would have entered this world and encountered the storyline of her serving a demon with her body. The most probable plot would be the two of them experiencing life and death together, undergoing various trials in the Jianghu, supporting each other, him saving the beauty, and sacrificing himself without hesitation. This would ultimately move her, shatter her sword heart, and cause Sword Servant Mountain to lose both its lady and its soldiers. This was old Cao's conjectured and reversed plot, and it was highly probable. This method was not problematic. Using various hero saves the beauty scenarios would likely genuinely move her. But now, old Cao was not in the mood to create any storylines to amuse her. He could not possibly take her to roam the Jianghu. Given Cao Chuan's current luck, and having offended so many Jianghu forces, sneak attacks and assassinations would surely happen. Slowly, this could lead to the two of them experiencing life and death, eventually winning Qin Yingxiu's true heart. But did old Cao need true heart nature? Apparently not. The most direct way to obtain true heart nature was also a sword strike from the west. This was why old Cao stayed indoors for 3 days to convince her. This was merely his behavioral pattern. More importantly, old Cao had acquired a new cultivation technique, one that was not at all inferior to the divine rank qi refining technique. In some aspects, it was even stronger. One must know, the foundation of this thing was the Yellow Emperor's Inner Classic. Just think about what this mind cultivation technique is for, and you will understand. It emphasizes yin and yang. So, these past few days, two people, oh right, there was also Meng Yu. The three of them cultivated day and night, making great progress. They all stepped into the Great Grandmaster realm, and were directly propelled to the Great Grandmaster late stage, not far from the martial golden core. This cultivation speed, if revealed in the Jianghu, would scare a lot of people to death. And this was only after 3 days. Old Cao had only recently learned the super awesome invincible emperor scripture. In 3 years, he might truly achieve ascension in broad daylight. The name was not wrong at all. At the same time, this mind cultivation technique also had the effect of influencing one's heart. The more frequent the interactions, the more Qin Yingxiu would be unable to harbor ill will towards Cao Chuan. This cultivation technique was indeed awesome, and truly invincible. This day, Cao Chuan was eating fruit fed to him by Qin Yingxiu. His hands were also busy. After a while, I will have someone help you seize a city and establish the Southern Liang regime. Cao Chuan did not mind giving her some benefits. Previously, Cao Chuan had no such plans. It was merely drawing a pie in the sky. But now, with this cultivation technique, she would eventually be one of his own, so Cao Chuan wanted to nurture her more. It would also mean cultivating an affiliated force to fight on his behalf. The former officials of Southern Liang would make excellent vanguards. I will listen to your highness in everything, Qin Yingxiu said sweetly, though it was unclear how much sincerity or pretense was in her tone. But it was evident that after a few days, she seemed to have truly changed a little. The occasional flicker of struggle in her eyes indicated that she also sensed something, but she was not sure, and perhaps was already unable to refuse old Cao or make up her mind to leave. Her sword heart was already tainted. She could never go back. Cao Chuan stroked her beautiful hair, which was spread behind her, then pressed on her neck. Under her slightly resentful gaze, he made her go down. Old Cao stayed in the back garden for a long time. After learning the super awesome invincible cultivation technique, he began busying himself with helping everyone improve their strength. This thing was truly cheating. Old Cao traveled thousands of miles, went to border markets, and even launched a night raid on the imperial palace. In short, he was constantly busy, and everyone received a great improvement. Of course, the biggest improvement was undoubtedly Old Cao's. On Blue Star, the time entered November. The north would start its heating, and the south would experience some sudden rain and drops in temperature. But the so-called doomsday was only a little over a month away. This news was now widely rumored, but oddly enough, many rich people believed it, preparing to become bunker boys, spending countless family assets, acquiring many weapons, ammunition, food, and other items at high prices. They also bought a lot of various clean water sources. In contrast, ordinary people were not worried at all, and did not believe it. Some even thought that if the apocalypse was real, it should come quickly. If it came a month earlier, they would owe one less month on their credit cards. Human nature is sometimes very strange. The poorer and unluckier one is, the more one hopes the whole world is unlucky. They even believe that as long as the apocalypse comes, or a global war, the world will be reshuffled, and then the poor will have a chance to get rich quickly. Many people think this way. In fact, most people's poor circumstances have no karma relationship with the era they live in. People who are useless in peaceful times will most likely still be useless, or even worse off, in an apocalypse. Of course, a very small number can rise with the tide, such as through mutation or accidental surges in strength, but definitely not by relying on their brains. If they had brains, would they not have already gotten rich in peaceful times? Not big money, but small money could always be earned. Why wait for social resources to be reshuffled? Chapter 457. Of course, Old Cao was not criticizing, but rather describing a brutal social phenomenon. Strictly speaking, Old Cao may not possess great wisdom, but he certainly has a bit of cleverness. Otherwise, he would not have done so well in his previous life, and his emotional intelligence is also present. Even with Old Cao like this, without the system mutation, he could not guarantee he would survive well if he encountered the apocalypse or war. How could those people be so confident? Perhaps it is because they feel they have nothing left to lose, that they are already at rock bottom, and things can only get better, not worse. Maybe that is really what they think. But this thought is strange. What does nothing left to lose mean? At least life is still there. If the apocalypse really happens, whether life remains is truly hard to say. In fact, merely surviving might be worse than the present, where one might not even have dignity for a bite to eat. At least now there is peace and dignity. You can walk down the street with your head held high. Therefore, when Old Cao returned to Blue Star, and saw many comments online, he was speechless. These people truly are fearless in their ignorance. However, Old Cao only secretly complained, his mood not changing much. After looking around, Cao Chuan was certain that most people did not believe in the apocalypse. Even though some countries have been acting strangely recently, and many military experts, political commentators, and economists are spreading speculations online, they confirm that even if it is not the apocalypse, some bad events are likely to occur. Yet, few people still believe it. The fewer assets one has, the less they believe. On the other side, the high-level officials have already transported nearly 30,000 people to the Republic of China plain, occupying a county town and tightly sealing it off. In that era of warlord chaos, it was very easy to seal off a remote county town, and not a single piece of news leaked out. They are developing quietly and discreetly. When Cao Chuan returned this time, he also went to the capital, and then to the Republic of China, enjoying the decent air. Although the Republic of China had already gone through the Industrial Revolution, the country was still primarily agricultural, so the air was a little better than Blue Star. Especially in remote county towns, there were truly green mountains, clear waters, and golden mountains of wealth. Old Cao's visit to the Republic of China this time was also to transport scientific and technological equipment. Feng Manlu's high-tech equipment is small in volume, so it can enter the transmigration machine and be sent to the Republic of China. Afterward, they will establish a base in this small county town and mountainous area, quietly excavating mountains, building roads, constructing airstrips, establishing armories and factories for daily necessities. Additionally, Old Cao also transported the women who had not gone to the back garden to the Republic of China plain. These are all latecomers and are temporarily not qualified to go to the back garden. For example, Li Qiansu, the sweetheart leader from the entertainment plot, and Xiao Moer, the Jade Girl sect leader, Miao Kexin and Chen Ying from Chu Feng's plot, including a group of girls from the Feng City Song and Dance Troupe, the Little Fox by Xiener, and her sister by Tower. None of these were qualified to go to the back garden. The apocalypse will not happen a month later. Old Cao is very clear about this, but he still sent them over, which is also a matter of controlling details. If Cao Chuan did nothing, it would make people curious. If nothing happened on the day of the apocalypse, people would likely speculate that Cao Chuan knew all along, but gave no warning. Although no one dares to show disrespect to Old Cao now, Cao Chuan is a gentleman after all, so he should not let everyone become estranged. Moreover, the apocalypse has not arrived yet, but it will eventually. So Old Cao cannot warn everyone. Otherwise, how would he explain the later apocalypse? Say he knew about it early. How did he know? He did not want trouble. He simply sent them over in advance. Although the Republic of China is chaotic, it is nothing to these people. Miao Kexin's strength, including the Little Fox by family sisters, is not bad. Of course, also not to be missed are the recent Chen Qi Niu Yu, Lin Menjia, and Lin Qiansu. They also temporarily cannot go to the back garden. The back garden is not a place anyone can go to. After Old Cao went to the Republic of China once, he also quite liked it there. It was much better than the polluted world in his impression. So that place belongs to the outer universe. He can put a few more people there and go to relax when he has time. What is going on with Old Chen? Cao Chuan sat on the sofa, his brows deeply furrowed. Beside him was Chen Qi. Across from him Miu was weeping, and in the distance stood Chen Fan. Miu called Old Chen last night, and a woman answered, saying Old Chen was in the restroom. Originally, this was nothing. At most, it was just borrowing a restroom. There is always an excuse, is there not? But before Miu could speak, there was movement on the other end. Old Chen seemed to come out of the restroom, hearing the sound of the door opening. Then the situation became delicate. The woman on the other end also seemed very scheming. She did not hang up the phone, but just placed it nearby. Miu also did not hang up and heard Old Chen's flirtatious voice, and the woman's coquettish voice from the other side, followed by smacking sounds and rustling. It was solid proof. It had nothing to do with Old Cao. After all, Old Cao had not been on Blue Star for a long time, and Miu had not needed to avoid him these past few months. He had just returned this time, and had no time to scheme anything. It was Old Chen's own mistake, unable to resist temptation. After all, he was a high-ranking official of the company, the general manager in the capital. It is normal for him to have a few women around, who want to climb the ladder by leveraging his power. Various temptations came one after another, and his family was separated. You really cannot blame Old Chen. Any man would not be able to resist. After all, he also has needs. He just made a mistake that all men make. But the problem was that he was schemed against by this manipulative woman, who not only dared to answer the phone for Old Chen, but also did not hang up, letting the general manager's wife listen to the live scene over the phone. This shows how bold this woman is. Clearly, she has not had her hair pulled, or clothes torn by the original wife on the street, otherwise, she would not have this courage. This morning, Miu called Chen Qi from school, and also called Chen Fen back. Her emotions were relatively stable, just her eyes were a little red. She actually did not really blame Old Chen. After all, she had also let Old Chen down. However, she did not want to continue, so she called her daughter and son back. The children were grown, and she told them she was getting a divorce. Coincidentally, Old Cao also arrived. Is that not a coincidence? After listening to Miu, Cao Chuan frowned. This Old Chen is indeed like me. Bah, I will talk to him later. He was probably just impulsive. No need, I do not want to continue. Miu gave Cao Chuan a faint glance. Cao Chuan shuddered. Damn it. Relying on me? Forget it. Seeing how pretty and pitiful you are, I will reluctantly agree. Who made Chen Qi so clingy to me? Cao Chuan pondered inside, then asked after a while. How will the children be divided? Xiao Fan is grown, and does not need a guardian. Qi needs to attend school in Zhonghai, so she will be with me, Miu said. Have you told Old Chen? Cao Chuan asked. Miu nodded. I just called him. What did he say? Cao Chuan continued to ask. He was silent for a while, then agreed. He will handle the procedures with me next time he returns to Zhonghai. Old Chen is a true man, not at all dragging his feet. He was probably dazzled in the capital. After all, there are many girls there, and without supervision, he is having a great time. He does not miss home at all. He is having such a good time that he forgets to return home. What is more, the children are grown up and no longer need to be considered. Cao Chuan even felt a little envious of old Chen. Chapter 458. The matter was resolved perfectly. Cao Chuan no longer needed to arrange a fallback for Chen. Previously, Cao Chuan had been quite reliable. He considered that if Niu did not want to leave, he would accept it. Cao Chuan was not the type to force people, and he was not lacking one or two companions. It was precisely because Niu and Chen were now divorcing that Cao Chuan thought this way. He did not mind having more companions. Previously, he had considered sending Chen to the tribal era to establish a production and construction corps for land reclamation. Now, he did not need to worry about it. On the day she made up her mind, Niu was exceptionally wild. She knew that in every aspect, Chen could not compare to Cao Chuan, but she had never thought of leaving. She knew she was letting Chen down and had avoided him many times. But now the situation was different. She no longer needed to suppress her feelings, so she was exceptionally uninhibited. It was early morning. Niu was tired but relaxed as she listened to Cao Chuan's heartbeat. Cao Chuan said he would take her on a trip. Niu did not refuse. She would not avoid him now. Whatever Cao Chuan arranged was fine. Cao Chuan patted her back and said nothing more. He was considering how to arrange these people once they went to the Republic of China Plain. He could not just keep them all in the inner chambers. He planned to move Feng Manlu over and establish an office. Niu would not need to manage external affairs, but she would manage the other girls internally. For now, that was the decision. The weather grew colder and colder. It was December, with less than 1 month until the apocalypse. Zhang Sheng returned quietly. His strength had undergone earth-shattering changes. Months of training allowed him to achieve extraordinary combat power with his mortal body. This was his special ability. He needed no payments or drugs, as he simply grew stronger with exercise. His bottomless storage space was filled with supplies, weapons, ammunition, production lines, and generators. This apocalypse was not merely a simple virus. It was said to be directly related to a solar storm. A sudden burst of cosmic rays would instantly penetrate the entire planet, causing all species to mutate. Some people would become stronger, while others would turn into zombies. These were speculations made many years after the apocalypse. No one could guarantee if it was exactly like that. These cosmic rays not only changed the human body, but also destroyed many technological products. In the early stage, 70% of the population would turn into zombies. 70% of all technological products would be destroyed. This destruction was thorough, as all components would be damaged. In the apocalypse, very few cars could be driven, and very few technological devices could be used. This led to a lack of technology in the late stage. Even electricity was a luxury. Do not even think about restarting production. Humanity almost returned to the Iron Age, regressing by who knows how many years. The more precise the instrument, the more easily it was damaged. Once damaged, it could not be repaired. High-level officials were concerned about the transmigration device, as it was a high-precision machine. Fortunately, Cao Chuan gave them confidence. In the area of the transmigration device, he placed black technologies and interference devices to protect against cosmic rays, forming a sterile zone. After December, Cao Chuan began to accept the weapons and equipment gifted by the officials. They had hesitated at first, but giving them in this last month was to be on the safe side. These items would be transported to the underground base in Feng City. Once the apocalypse broke out, Feng City would establish a survivor base to take in as many people as possible. They aimed to preserve the human spark. It was not the right time to let everyone migrate, as organizing it was difficult. There was also the worry of foreign nations finding out. Currently, everyone was preparing their own things. But if other countries knew they could escape to a new world, the consequences would be unimaginable. The simplest outcome would be war. If they could not live, they would ensure no one else could. Everyone might be wiped out before the apocalypse even began. They could only wait. Once the apocalypse broke out, all satellites would be useless, and high-precision computer equipment would be destroyed. Everyone in the world would be confined to their own small patch of land. That would be the time to leave. They would send survivors to the tribal plain, and others to the Republic of China Plain. It was a cruel choice, and 80% of the population would likely be lost. But there was no other way. This was the final decision made by officials after countless meetings. Cao Chuan was an observer, and could only accept the situation. Zhang Sheng returned very discreetly. However, officials knew of his return. No one bothered him, as everyone was too busy. They only had someone monitor him. Zhang Sheng returned to Zonghai, the place he was most familiar with. He was still preparing. After much deliberation, he chose a relatively remote golf club. It was far from the bustling city, with a small population, wide roads, and few vehicles. When the apocalypse happened, the transportation here would be well connected. A subway entrance was located nearby. The subway would be waste after the apocalypse, but the underground transportation system was a lifeline. As long as the zombies in the subway were cleared out, the underground could house people and lead to anywhere in the city. The golf club's environment was also excellent, with wide views. Living there was much better than in other parts of the city. Zhang Sheng was a thoughtful person. After preparing his foothold, he called his former class monitor. Zhang Sheng called out, "Class monitor." The voice on the other end replied, "Zhang Sheng. It is me. You, where did you go? I thought you were missing." I could not reach you for months. Are you working now? Or are you repeating a year? The class monitor's voice was gentle, still showing concern. After months of rushing about, Zhang Sheng could finally calm down. Hearing this long-lost voice and caring tone, he felt a warmth inside, experiencing a sense of home in this winter. He replied, I went to an overseas country. Chapter 459. Class Monitor Goddess. He went to an overseas country. Yes, to buy some things to prepare for the future. Class Monitor, I heard you got into Fudan. How have you been recently? I am doing great. It is just you. Sigh, do not give up. Try studying for another year, the Class Monitor Goddess said. Zhang Sheng answered irrelevantly, Class Monitor, there is no time left. What do you mean there is no time left? It is mid-December now. In a little over 10 days, the world will end. Piffed. The Class Monitor Goddess on the other end chuckled. I did not expect you to still believe in that. Everyone on the internet is talking about it, and I know about this news too, but it is impossible. Zhang Sheng said seriously, Class Monitor, have you paid attention to what various countries are doing? They are all blocking food exports, hoarding food, water, weapons, and ammunition, and they are all digging underground civil defense projects. The Class Monitor Goddess said. Someone seems to have mentioned it, but, Class Monitor, Zhang Sheng interrupted her. Believe me, there really will be an apocalypse. I went to an overseas country to buy weapons, and the time of the apocalypse is upon us. This month on the 21st in the afternoon. The Class Monitor did not really believe it, mainly because it felt absurd. What is this? The world ending at the drop of a hat. As for the choices between countries, although it does seem like a major event might be happening, this could just be a reserve competition. After all, experts have analyzed that now is not the time for a major war to break out. Although there are many conflicts worldwide, they have not reached the point of igniting the powder keg. Unless a leader of one of the three major powers is assassinated, perhaps then a major war might occur. And the probability of an event like the end of the world, with no basis, is even lower than that of a major war. So it is more likely just a competition. Perhaps the high-level officials discovered something, such as the future suddenly entering an ice age, or something else. This is impossible to guess. But from a probabilistic standpoint, the probability of an apocalypse exists, but it is not high. Class Monitor. Zhang Sheng could not say too much, not because he was afraid of it getting out, because there are all sorts of rumors online now. It is just that he found it hard to explain. He could not very well say that he was a transmigrator, and that he was the one who told the country about the apocalypse, could he? Their relationship was not that good. Zhang Sheng said, no matter if you believe it or not, you need to make some preparations. I know your family background is good. You do not lack money or influence, and you are originally from Zonghai. So prepare more supplies, food, water, especially warm things. These will not cost much money. As long as you can survive the early stage, you will easily adapt to the new world. Zhang Sheng was right. In the early stage, many people could not adapt, and the psychological pressure was also very great. Just the problem of day and night temperature difference alone could make many people break down, and not a few froze to death. Can you believe it? In December, which is originally winter, the temperature in Zonghai dropped to -10 or 20 degrees at night, and it was even colder in the northeast. And during the day, despite being winter in December, the temperature suddenly soared to over 30 degrees. This sudden climate change alone could kill many people. Overnight, many plants and animals died. Within a day, many supplies that could not be stored for long also spoiled. So the early stage was very difficult, but once adapted, it became easier. Moreover, the reason Zhang Sheng said this was to get her to prepare a few things. When the apocalypse arrived, she would be able to survive the early stage. At that time, Zhang Sheng would go find her, and with what Zhang Sheng had, it would be enough to support a group of people. Naturally, she would not need to store too many things. Class Monitor, as long as you get through the initial difficult stage, I will find a way to find you, Zhang Sheng said solemnly. The Class Monitor Goddess pondered for a moment, then chuckled. Okay, then I will go prepare some supplies. If the world really ends on the 21st, I will probably still be at school. Just come find me then. The 21st was a Wednesday, so she would definitely be at school. Zhang Sheng said, Class Monitor, school is actually very dangerous. If you believe me, at 5 p.m. on the 21st, do not wander around inside the school. Lock your door in your dorm room. Okay. It is hard to say if she believed him, but it was clear that this Class Monitor was actually very gentle. At least she did not like to make people lose face. So whether she believed him or not, she would agree. Or perhaps she was just too lazy to argue with him. Whatever he said was right. Old Cao was monitoring Zhang Sheng's call. But Old Cao was not ready to make a move, because this apocalypse was unlikely to happen, so it was not time to take down this Class Monitor yet. Besides, Old Cao was too lazy to make an extra trip for this bit of luck. The time to act would be if the apocalypse did not come on that day. Old Cao had some memory of this plot. The apocalypse did not come. Zhang Sheng evaded various pursuits, and the Class Monitor Goddess was very disappointed in him. Then the apocalypse did come, and Zhang Sheng appeared before the Class Monitor Goddess as a savior, rescuing the desperate Class Monitor. After that, the Class Monitor became the mistress of his inner chambers. She gradually grew, and finally commanded the 6 palaces. In the apocalypse, all kinds of female celebrities, female CEOs, female rich women, school beauties, female workers, anyway, all sorts of women, all survived by relying on Zhongsheng. Their lives could not have been more comfortable. However, the plot ended when the apocalypse arrived. The later parts were all mentioned in essays as side stories, and were not officially described. This plot was mainly about playing with ideas, not many words, not much plot. In these last few days, old Cao was not idle. He took Miyu to the Republic of China, which scared Miyu badly. She never thought there was such a thing as transmigration, and that she would transmigrate to the Republic of China. Even the high-level officials had established a base here. She truly felt like she was dreaming. Old Cao said he would take her on a trip, and it turned out to be a trip to a parallel universe. Especially when she heard Old Cao say that he would live here permanently, and not go back. Miyu instinctively refused. How can I not go back? My son and daughter are both in school. If I do not go back, Kiki will not even have anyone to cook for her. Do not worry, Cao Chuan put his arm around her, smiling. I have already arranged a cook for Kiki. Besides, it is not that I do not want to go back, but that I cannot. The world there is going to experience an apocalypse. There really is an apocalypse. Miyu was startled. Yes, and it is coming very soon. That is why the high-level officials prepared a base here in advance. I also have some cooperation with the high-level officials, allowing me to come over and plan ahead. Cao Chuan did not explain much. You just live here peacefully. Later, we will go to Shanghai, get a small Western-style house, and experience the charm of this 10-mile overseas concession. You do not need to worry too much. I will arrange everything properly. I will bring our daughter and son over then. Nothing will happen to them. Miyu stopped talking and instead got up. Again. Chapter 460. When Chen Kiki learned that her mother would not be returning for a while, and that Cao Chuan would be staying over, her expression was indescribably happy. Chen Fan typically did not return home when he went to university. Old Chen was not worth mentioning. With her mother gone again, the entire house naturally became the domain of Chen Kiki. Cao Chuan staying over was also intended to help Miyu look after her, which delighted the girl. It was the 20th. Everyone who needed to be sent off had already been sent, including Lin Minjia and Lin Qiansu, who had both been sent to the Republic of China plane. Only Chen Kiki remained by her side. Cao Chuan took her to Jingcheng by car. In a flash, it was the afternoon of the 21st. With Chen Kiki wearing a dazed expression, Cao Chuan took her to a special department. The area was surrounded by heavily armed personnel, clearly indicating that something big was happening. What shocked Chen Kiki the most was seeing several big shots from the news broadcasts with her own eyes. The young girl was terrified, especially since these elders all smiled kindly, though they looked a bit more tired than they did on television. This is my little Kiki. I am keeping her with me, and she will not be going there for now, Cao Chuan explained. No further explanation was needed. Presumably, this group of people was well aware of the relationship between Cao Chuan and Miyu, as it had not been hidden when Miyu went to the Republic of China previously. Afterward, everyone entered the massive control room. The surrounding walls were fitted with special partitions, and the exterior had black technology jammers that could isolate all external matter. This ensured that those present would not be infected by the so-called virus. Actually, Cao Chuan was not sure if these things could truly protect them, but he bought them with money just in case. What if the apocalypse really came? What if the plot changed again? To be blunt, if the apocalypse truly arrived, Cao Chuan would, in that 1,000th of a second, instantly shut down his wormhole and go to the back garden, no longer caring about the risk of exposure. As cautious as he was, he would never put himself in danger. It would be a joke if he turned into a zombie. His main principle was stability, taking all possible changes into account. Therefore, it was highly probable that there would be no apocalypse this time, which is why Cao Chuan appeared particularly calm and composed. Otherwise, he would have run away long ago. There was still an hour until 5 o'clock. Although an hour was a long time, the atmosphere on site clearly shifted, becoming oppressive. The monitoring room was connected to the Heavenly Eye network of major cities. It could see the bustling traffic in major cities in real time. This large Heavenly Eye network was updated and built in the past 2 years. Almost every city's tallest buildings had a super monitor on their rooftops that could survey the entire city. Although there would be many blind spots, as various high-rise buildings were constantly being erected, having this Heavenly Eye would place the entire city within a radiation zone. Combined with street cameras, it could almost achieve real-time monitoring and tracking. As long as a criminal was locked onto by the Heavenly Eye in the city, they could not escape pursuit. Unfortunately, this system had only been in use for a short time before the end of the world arrived. What was even more regrettable was the underground city in Feng City. Cao Chuan had spent a lot of luck on it and felt heartbroken for a long time. Who could have imagined that this comprehensive plane would eventually merge into the end of the world? It was a little past 4 o'clock now. The time for the so-called apocalypse was drawing nearer. The entire world was so calm, with no signs of the apocalypse beforehand. There were no fiery clouds, nor any violent storms. On the main roads of major first-tier cities, countless vehicles moved back and forth. It was not even rush hour yet, but there were still many vehicles on the streets. The expressions of the elders were solemn, and growing increasingly so. One of them, seemingly unable to bear the pressure, spoke. Should we really not notify everyone in advance? At least to give some people psychological preparation. If they are prepared in advance, their survival rate will be higher. This matter was unspeakable because it involved too much, and could easily cause unrest. But now it was almost time. Even if they only gave 10 minutes notice, broadcast through special channels, or sent out mass text messages, it would allow everyone to prepare. 10 minutes was always better than being caught completely by surprise. Theoretically, this was true. Therefore, this elder's pressure actually stemmed from guilt. Watching these people die inexplicably was very remorseful. He was not a great saint. It was just that any person with a bit of conscience, imagining the scene that was about to unfold, would feel compassion. Especially when they themselves were prepared. Those people in the video, like abandoned small animals, each looked so pitiful. Even if those people were talking, laughing, and shopping, they still seemed very pitiful. No, the person next to him sighed and shook his head. Theoretically, giving a little advance notice would provide preparation time, but in reality, was it truly possible? It was not. First, it was not 100% certain that an apocalypse would occur. Secondly, giving 10 minutes notice in advance could lead to consequences even more terrifying than the arrival of the apocalypse. Never underestimate the evil in human nature. The most important thing was that everyone had selfish motives. If they were notified 10 minutes in advance, it would be better not to notify them at all. Notifying them at the last moment, after everyone else has prepared, is not kindness. It is merely pity, and it might even cause many survivors to harbor resentment. If you then wanted to take them to a parallel universe, you would be taking a group of people with selfish motives and hatred towards you, with unimaginable consequences. In short, either notify them early, or never notify them at all. Keep it strictly confidential. These were their thoughts, but Cao Chuan did not think that way, because Cao Chuan did not care at all. There was a high probability there would not be an apocalypse this time, so why rush? When the apocalypse truly arrived, even those present would not have time to prepare. The heavenly Tao consciousness would make adjustments. A transmigrator had returned, and made this matter known to the whole world, so if the heavenly Tao had even a slight temper, it would shift the original apocalypse time, giving everyone another surprise attack. Anyway, if Cao Chuan were the heavenly Tao consciousness, he would definitely do that. You say the end of the world is on December 21st, 2011, and so it is. Do you not know who the heavenly Tao is? I will wait another 2 months, when you are all relaxed and careless, then I will hit you with a surprise attack and see how you dodge. Countdown, 3 minutes. Chen Qi gripped the big hand of Cao Chuan tightly. She also knew that the end of the world was coming, and this news had completely short-circuited the girl's brain. 5 o'clock was about to arrive in a flash, and the heart rate of Chen Qi suddenly accelerated. Cao Chuan patted her hand, comforting her. Do not worry, I am here. But mom, do not worry about that either. I have already sent them to the safest place. Let alone the end of the world. Even if this planet explodes, it will not harm your mother in the slightest. Countdown, 2 minutes. Chen Qi was in the arms of Cao Chuan, not daring to look at the screen. She did not think it was fake. So many big shots were waiting here. How could you say everyone was joking with you? That is just nonsense. Cao Chuan patted her back, comforting her. Countdown, 1 minute. Everyone held their breath as the time reached 5 o'clock. Zhang Sheng had said it would be exactly 5 o'clock. Chen Qi suddenly stood on her tiptoes, closing her eyes. Smack. Then, 5 past 1, 5 past 2. Rush hour had arrived. Traffic was still bustling, and the flow of vehicles in the city was increasing. The world was still the same world. A line of crows flew over the heads of everyone. What is going on? An elder spoke, his tone a strange mix of anger and joy. Bring Zhang Sheng back. Zhang Sheng, on his end, was also bewildered at this moment. Chapter 461. At 5 o'clock, Zhang Sheng was at the Golf Club apartment hotel, in the most luxurious large apartment. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, Zhang Sheng lit a cigar. His supply depot was incredibly well-stocked. This time, he had even acquired a small cigar factory in the United States, getting a good amount of these. Cigars lasted longer than cigarettes. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window with the cigar in his mouth, watching the passers-by outside. Below were green spaces, a golf course, and in the distance, the coastline. At this time, not many people were playing. There were only a few scattered groups, and some bosses driving golf carts, accompanied by girls in white short skirts. Looking out, there were no more than a dozen people, very spread out. Zhang Sheng exhaled a thick puff of smoke. His eyes held pity as he looked at the people in the distance. Whether they were bosses, officials, or celebrities, everything would change after 5 o'clock. The apocalypse did not care about any of that. Zhang Sheng mumbled, the apocalypse descends. Good luck. As the clock passed 5 o'clock, 5:01, 5:02, dong. In the distance, the sound of a golf club hitting a ball was very crisp. A chubby boss swung his club, and the girl beside him applauded continuously. The scene could not have been more harmonious. The apocalypse did not come. Should not the girl have mutated directly and bitten the chubby boss to death? Why was she still applauding? Zhang Sheng froze for a moment. His expression gradually became strange, as if he had thought of something, and cold sweat trickled down his temples. A chill ran down his spine. Something was wrong. Completely wrong. Proportionally speaking, among the dozen or so people visible, at least half should have mutated into zombies and chased those around them. Yet these dozen people were doing exactly what they normally did, completely unaffected. He took out his phone to check, and the signal was full. This was also wrong. All base stations should have been instantly damaged. There should be no signal. He turned around and switched on the television in the room. All channels were receivable, no problem. Most importantly, a few minutes after the apocalypse began, explosions should have been heard from various places, some from falling planes, some from substations, and similar locations. Such explosions could travel very far. More importantly, there was no fog. But now it was calm and peaceful. This was completely unlike what an apocalypse should look like. Zhang Sheng's hands were trembling, and his heart was pounding. Could it be that because of my rebirth, a butterfly effect occurred, and the apocalypse will not happen in this lifetime? Then, would not all my preparations be in vain? And I have offended many people. Zhang Sheng had killed Wang Lin before, and this time, after returning to the country, he had secretly assassinated several well-known apocalypse bullies, but no one had bothered him. If the apocalypse had come, everything would be fine. Now that it had not, he would inevitably face severe legal sanctions. Run. Zhang Sheng did not hesitate for a moment, throwing all his belongings into his storage space, even half a cigar. He turned and left the club's apartment hotel. It was best to leave now. As he fled, Zhang Sheng still wondered, how could this be? If there was a butterfly effect, then why were all his other predictions accurate? Do not think that the country was stupid. It was impossible for them to completely trust him just because he predicted a few ball games. Zhang Sheng had explained many things to Mizi, otherwise, she would not have believed him. He also provided many details to the domestic high-level officials. Zhang Sheng had probably mentioned everything he could remember, so after confirming each event, one by one, and always finding him correct, the high-level officials had no choice but to believe him. The result was just this. Zhang Sheng had not run long before the club was surrounded, but unfortunately, they could not catch Zhang Sheng immediately. That guy ran really fast. Mizi had also made full preparations, even more excessive preparations, because 70% of people would be infected. Some high-level officials were not sure if they would be infected, nor if their colleagues would turn into zombies. So, before the apocalypse arrived, they mutually tied themselves to chairs, securing themselves. They could reach a handgun and a knife with their hands. As soon as the mutation began, uninfected people could quickly grab a gun for self-defense and a knife to cut the ropes. Those mutated zombies had no intelligence and could not break free from the ropes in a short time. This ensured everyone's safety. See how clever they were. The result was even more embarrassing. The president looked at Leon, the former intelligence chief and current Secretary of Defense, his face livid. This is what you called the apocalypse. Leon also had a dark expression, feeling he had been played. A clever person next to him even asked, is it Beijing time 5 o'clock? Not our 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Should we wait a bit longer? Enough. The president, already dark-skinned, now looked even darker. Do not mention anything about 5 o'clock again. Untie me. This is a disgrace. This is our disgrace. Being fooled by a yellow-skinned monkey for half a year. Contact the East and demand an explanation. I have reason to suspect this is a conspiracy, a malicious economic war targeting us. Beep. Wang Defa. Soon, the Chinese trader Wang Defa arrived, and was given another order to contact the East. Many people from the Foreign Affairs Office had recently returned home, and now that there was no apocalypse, they would probably have to come back. This account could not be settled easily. Someone had to be responsible, someone had to provide an explanation, and that person named Zhang. Bring him back. No one in the world who had played the United States could survive. The Great Bear was in pretty much the same situation. President Putin felt he had been played by the United States and Europe, because the news he received came from there, passed on with great detail, while China had said nothing from beginning to end. Of course, the reason for thinking this way was also because relations were still relatively good. One could not get angry at this side, could one? Even if there was anger, it should be directed at the United States. However, President Putin had his pride. Even if he was played, he could not publicly express it or curse. He noted this matter. Other countries aware of the situation had also made full preparations. Then, crows appeared all over the world. Rows of crows flew over everyone's heads. The times in different places were not the same. Some were daytime, some were early morning. They had been suspicious from the start. Why should the end of the world happen according to Beijing time at 5 in the afternoon? Was not Europe the center of the world? If it were to happen, it should be according to their time. Or the United States time. That is right. Look, now look. Is this not fake? Why would it be according to Beijing time? According to world rankings, it should not be calculated this way either. One country started to be wise after the event, and the meaning was all similar. I knew it was fake. If it were not for the three big fools being overly cautious, I would not have hoarded grain at all. There were also some countries that had originally been swindled, selling a lot of grain at high prices, who went from anger to surprise, and laughed heartily 3 times. If it were not for fear of provoking the 3 permanent members, it is estimated that these people would have directly entered taunt mode worldwide. Forget it. Let us be secretly happy. Selling grain at a high price was not easy. This was the first time many younger brothers had taken advantage of a few big bosses in their lives. Ha 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 ha. Sold at a high price, now grain was about to plummet. Buy some back at a low price. Delightful. Chapter 462. When Cao Chuan left with Chen Qi, his expression was strange. It was expected. But when he saw the looks on the faces of those old men, Cao Chuan almost burst out laughing. If his mouth had not been covered, he probably would have laughed aloud. The embarrassment on their faces was palpable. Perhaps it was because old Cao was nearby that they held back. Chen Qi held Cao Chuan's hand, her face flushed. A moment ago, at the very last second, she had become emotional and done something quite out of line. It had lasted for 2 full minutes. Although no one criticized her, and no one even noticed what happened between her and old Cao, the young girl's heart was still pounding at over 100 beats per minute. It trembled uncontrollably as she thought about it now. Is there really still a doomsday coming? Chen Qi quietly brought up the topic. Otherwise, walking in silence would become awkward. Before they left, old Cao had reassured everyone. He told them that while there was no doomsday now, it did not mean there would not be one later. Firstly, Zhang Sheng's predictions were almost always accurate. If he was not a reborn person, it would be impossible for major events and small details to be so precise. Secondly, old Cao possessed some fortune-telling methods that were also very accurate, though not as precise as a reborn person. Additionally, old Cao had divined that the crisis had not been resolved. Perhaps due to the arrival of the reborn person, certain karma chains had changed, and a butterfly effect had caused the apocalypse to be delayed. But it would come eventually. This was old Cao's prediction. He did not know if they believed him, but as he finished speaking, everyone's expressions improved somewhat. Then old Cao spoke. Continue preparations. Continue collecting grain. The Republic of China is short on grain, and the tribal areas have not been cultivated yet, so we need reserves. We need enough for everyone to eat for 3 years without doing anything. Furthermore, Zhang Sheng must be apprehended. Let the overseas world know that we were also fooled. Take the opportunity to quietly buy grain at low prices through other channels. Buy back the grain that other countries bought at high prices during this period. There is still so much foreign exchange. Oh, and hoard more gold. The Republic of China will need it. Try to spend the money as quickly as possible. Chen Qi naturally heard these words. That led to her question. Is there really still a doomsday? The apocalypse may be late, but it will never be absent. Meanwhile, the class monitor goddess was in her dorm room. She did not actually believe in the apocalypse, but she chose to trust Zhang Sheng. It was not that she had any particular fondness for him. She was simply quite receptive to advice. It was like a lottery gambler. If someone next to them mentioned a string of numbers, the gambler might think they sounded good. They would wonder what if they won. They would be furious if they had not bought the ticket. It was only 2 yuan, so adding an extra bet was no loss. That was her mindset. She stored some snacks, and when it was almost 5 o'clock, she locked the dorm room door from the inside. As it neared 5 o'clock, she stood on the balcony of the girls' dorm. She watched the students on the basketball court below showing off with all their might. Many people were there. Students were coming and going, leaving class, going to the library, or heading to the cafeteria. The class monitor goddess suddenly felt a little depressed. There would not really be a doomsday, would there? When Zhang Sheng told her about this, she certainly did not believe it. But after a careful investigation over the past 2 days, and a bit of recollection, she found that some countries were indeed making preparations. Experts said the probability of an apocalypse was very small, but it was not zero. She could not imagine what would happen if an apocalypse really occurred. She could not accept such a situation. Fortunately, time ticked past 5 o'clock. Looking at the diamond watch on her fair wrist, she saw it was past 5. Everything was as usual. The class monitor goddess laughed and shook her head, thinking she was being silly. Why would she really believe such things? A knock came at the door. Manny, are you in there? Why is the door locked from the inside? Oh, coming. The class monitor goddess came back to her senses and turned to open the door. This matter was completely forgotten. She would not blame Zhang Sheng. After all, he meant well. There were no ripples in her heart. Just like many things one encounters in life, today's matter was upsetting. But in a few days, it would be completely forgotten. With time, she would no longer remember it. Perhaps one day in the future, she would think of this matter again, perhaps with a slight smile, or finding it interesting, but it would be quickly forgotten. Zhang Sheng fled. Police pursued him. It seemed he had no way to escape. They were indeed apprehending him, ostensibly as a show for overseas spies, but if they could catch Zhang Sheng, the high-level officials would not let him go either. He had committed murder. It was against the law. First, lock him up, then talk, just to vent some anger. This kid was dishonorable. He had run to a foreign country to tip them off. This was no different from being a traitor. The high-level officials refused to pardon him. This kid had no country in his heart. Perhaps he had stayed in the apocalypse for too long, and his humanity was different from that in peaceful times. So the officials would not give him a chance to go to the Republic of China or the tribal era. Others, even criminals, had a chance to go, but Zhang Sheng alone did not. A few days later, they returned to Zonghai. Chen Qi had recently gotten used to staying by Cao Chuan's side. The weather was getting colder. The north had heating, and the hotel did too, so they rested comfortably. After returning to Zonghai, the Chen family house had no heating, so they needed to huddle together for warmth. At Chen Qi's insistence, old Cao could only humor her. She was his person, after all. After that, Chen Qi went to school during the day. Old Cao began working within Feng City. He had people dismantle the underground facilities and transport everything to the back garden. They were all purchased with money, and they were all good things, so why waste them? Some had been transferred before, and about half remained. Except for the core materials that could not be stripped and transported, all other equipment in the underground facilities could be moved. If the core materials of the walls were stripped away, it would probably collapse. At that time, this place would be a bottomless pit, and the entire Feng City would disappear. After transporting the items little by little to the back garden, he had mechanical engineers find a spot to rebuild an underground city there. The back garden had a lot of land, but many pieces of equipment were purchased specifically for underground exploration and were not needed on the surface. So they continued building downwards. The gold, diamonds, oil mines, and so on underground would all become the strategic reserves of the Chu Wang mansion. There could be no industry in the back garden, but if it was only Old Cow's company, no matter how much it developed, it would not affect the air quality. That is what you call a monopoly. Chapter 463. Dad. Oh my. You hit me, ha. This girl is so disrespectful. Cao Chuan reached out and patted Bu Yao's head, holding her with one arm. I heard you have been quite arrogant in the palace recently. Hee hee. Bu Yao wrapped her arms around Old Cow's neck. The Empress Dowager likes me. She even gave me a gold token. It is the kind that lets me walk sideways in the palace. Cao Chuan shook his head and smiled. Then you should visit the Empress Dowager often. But remember, you are not allowed to talk about Blue Star. It is a secret. Old Cow had instructed everyone about this, telling them to adapt to this world and forget about the situation on Blue Star. As for Bu Yao and Lu Han, these two little ones were the group's darlings. Old Cow was not worried at all about them becoming arrogant due to favoritism. To put it bluntly, they were villains. Even if he spoiled them rotten and they became lawless, what of it? He was happy to spoil them, and they were happy to be spoiled. Life is short. It spans a mere few 100,000 years. Was it not just about being happy? Besides, no matter how spoiled they might be, they still received 9 years of compulsory education, and were young women raised under the flag of the modern era. In terms of morality and law, they would still be much better than most people holding power in ancient times. I want to go horseback riding and hunting. No. Facing Bu Yao's request, Old Cow directly refused. Horseback riding. What kind of horse? She was still a girl, and was she not afraid of something going wrong while riding? What if she got hurt? He would talk about it when she was older. He had let Bu Jinyan and the others ride horses as they pleased, but this was different. Dad. Bu Yao pouted and whined. Lu Han, who was beside her, also wanted to ride a horse, but the two girls had different personalities. Lu Han was more reserved, while Bu Yao was more outgoing. A few more months. No rush. Cao Chuan could only appease her helplessly. He stayed here with the two little ones for several more days. During the day, it was about transporting things and accompanying them. Everyone else had tasks and things to do. After all, this world still needed them to develop it. Only the two little ones at home were relatively idle. Then at night, he would return to Blue Star. Such a simple life was calm but also fulfilling. Actually, after the season, some fruits could be eaten, especially the fruits grown in his own fields, which grew under careful nurturing, overflowing with fragrance, sweet and delicious. In his own fields, he was constantly watering and fertilizing them, with ample sunlight. He watched the fruits sprout and ripen little by little. Now was the harvest season. Flowering and fruiting were in the present. It was just that the hominy melons he grew carried a certain warmth, and Old Cow did not want to devour them like a glutton. So he had to savor them. 1 month passed. Old Cow had almost emptied out the underground of Feng City. Taking a rare day off, Bu Yao and Lu Han were by his side. One kneaded Old Cow's shoulders, the other handed him peeled fruit. Old Cow held a bare foot in his hand, while contemplating a very profound question. The wedding. He had promised before. He had also informed the Empress Dowager and others in advance. The marriage of the Prince of Chu was a grand event for the entire Great Qian, requiring a grand amnesty for the world. This was for show. Now it was up to the Ministry of Rites in the palace to calculate an auspicious day. Old Cow did not care much for these things, but since it was a joyous occasion, he did not refuse. As for whether the wedding would be before or after the apocalypse on Blue Star, it was not really that important. Chen Fan was sent to the Republic of China, becoming Old Cow's front man. His luck halo was almost gone, and he did not have much luck left. There was no need to kill him. It was just right to have Chen Fan help him hold down the fort in the Republic of China. As for Zhang Sheng, he was still on the run, unable to leave the capital, with many people waiting outside to capture him. His halo was somewhat broken, mainly due to Old Cow's schemes. If Old Cow had not given him a push, he would not have ended up in his current state. After all, according to the original plot, although he would also be pursued, he would not be so passive. But now, he was globally wanted, and had been thoroughly tricked. As long as he took down that class monitor goddess, Wang Mani, his halo would be completely resolved. As for whether he lived or died, Old Cow could not care less. Old Cow was reluctant to kill the last two children of destiny. Bu Yao hummed softly through her nose. Cao Chuan opened his eyes and looked at Bu Yao beside him. This girl seemed to have a fever, her face flushed. Cao Chuan smiled and withdrew his hand. Actually, everyone knew Old Cow's hobbies, which were nothing more than a fascination with feet. And Bu Yao and her aunt, the big fool, were similar in some ways, both a bit delicate. Just a few presses on the sole of the foot, and she would be done for. March arrived. Blue Star remained as usual. The apocalypse theory had been hyped for several years, and by now, no one believed it anymore. The buzz had long passed. Zhang Sheng was quite miserable at this time, hiding in an air raid shelter in the outskirts of a third-tier city. It was already far from Zonghai. Initially, Zhang Sheng had lingered around Zonghai. He did not want to leave the area because he was most familiar with it. And there were many girls here, not just the class monitor goddess Wang Mani, but many others. Ultimately, it was a globalized city, with a large population and a large base, so naturally, there were many beautiful women. But after several months, he was constantly pursued and constantly fleeing, gradually being driven out of the Zonghai area. This was also intentional on Old Cao's part. He would occasionally leak his location to the pursuers, gradually blocking his return routes, which instead made him run further and further away. Even if this guy was very powerful, by the time the apocalypse arrived, he would not be able to return. The dangers along the way were more than imagined. Even if Zhang Sheng had foreknowledge, once the apocalypse came, he would rapidly grow stronger by using the source stones within the zombie bodies. It would still take at least a month for him to rush back. A month would be enough for Wang Mani to already be pregnant. She was the most important destined heroine. Without her, Zhang Sheng's halo would be completely gone. Tui, damn it. Zhang Sheng cursed under his breath, not knowing who he was cursing. In short, during this period, he traversed mountains and ridges, encountering many shapeshifters and engaging in fierce battles. Ultimately, Zhang Sheng killed many shapeshifters, growing stronger and stronger, but also moving further and further away from Zonghai. He was also confused at this time. The apocalypse had not come. He could not just keep being pursued like this, could he? Damn you, old heavens, you are messing with me. You let me be reborn, let me prepare in advance, and then the apocalypse does not come. Is this something a human would do? Damn it. Zhang Sheng made a fire and roasted meat in the air raid shelter. He just did not notice that the sky was gradually darkening. It was 5 in the afternoon, and it should not be dark yet. But it was indeed starting to get dark, and mist began to appear in the forest. The fog grew thicker and thicker, larger and larger, covering everything, not even allowing sunlight to penetrate. Zhang Sheng could not see the situation outside from the air raid shelter, so naturally, he did not notice this change. And this thick fog was appearing globally. Chapter 464. The fog started to roll in. It was a heavy, dense fog. Cao Chuan immediately contacted Unit 1 via the internal phone. He said only one sentence. The apocalypse has arrived. Beijing also discovered something unusual. The fog came on very suddenly. At first, no one thought much of it. Although autumn and winter are common seasons for fog, it is just past winter now, so is it not normal to have fog? A heavy fog with visibility not exceeding 10 meters is not that rare either. It was Cao Chuan's call that startled the high-level officials. It is here already. For 3 months, there had been peace and quiet. Everyone was busy with their own affairs. They did not expect it to come so suddenly. Several of the decision-makers were not in Beijing. Today is March 14th, a Wednesday. When the dense fog suddenly rose, no one paid attention. No one felt it was a global precursor to disaster. When Cao Chuan made the call, there was obvious static on the phone. It indicated the signal was being interfered with. After saying one sentence, before he could say too much, the call was disconnected. Bang! On the streets, the sudden fog caused many experienced drivers to slow down. It was too late. Many cars broke down and stopped abruptly. Cars behind could not avoid them. Their vision was obstructed. They rear-ended each other one after another. At this moment, if you looked down from above through the mist, you would see countless car accidents. Because of the fog, many families turned on their lights. They were obscured by the mist. In a world without sunlight, it gradually became dark. However, the lights that had just been turned on soon went out in swathes. The entire world began to experience power outages, orderly in its disorder. Boom. Less than 5 minutes later, the number of air crashes increased everywhere. Planes crashed uncontrollably. Most ferries in the sea also suddenly malfunctioned and became uncontrollable. At this point, the temperature was also dropping little by little. It was just past 5 o'clock. The heating in many places had not stopped yet in March. The south had just entered the spring rain season, which inherently brings a late spring chill. This temperature drop seemed slow, but it was rapid. By 5:30, the temperature in some areas had already dropped to 0 degrees Celsius and was still falling. Eventually, all temperatures dropped to around -10 or -15 degrees Celsius. A few regions reached 20 degrees below zero. This was just a natural change. After tonight, the true apocalypse will arrive. The entire blue star will be like this. This fog came very fiercely. It was morning in United States, noon in Russia, and afternoon here. After a full 12 hours, the dense fog gradually dispersed. Sunlight once again shone upon the earth, but the earth was already silent and dead. Many cold-intolerant plants died overnight or withered. Those spring-welcoming plants that had just sprouted new buds and tender leaves were now completely dead. The temperature drop was too sudden and more biting than imagined. Countless people caught colds or even froze to death. Not everyone could make it home. Staying in an unheated and inoperable car at -10 degrees Celsius for one night would kill people, especially those who chose to abandon their vehicles and walk home. They could easily get lost in the dense fog and then freeze to death. Staying in the car might offer a chance to live, but leaving the car meant certain death. Zombies gradually took shape during these 12 hours of dense fog. The original plot was that they turned into zombies directly. At least that is how Cao Chuan remembered it. Although there was fog, it was very brief. Therefore, the plot changed. This indicated that the zombies would become stronger, and the world would become even more terrifying. Based on his memory of the plot, in the following years, some people speculated that it was a global catastrophe caused by cosmic rays. Others guessed it was related to this fog. Now that the fog is denser and lasts longer, it is possible that the zombies will also become stronger. As the sunlight streamed down onto the ground, a piercing scream soared to the sky and startled the entire city. That is an exaggeration, but it is pretty close. As the first scream began, they rose one after another. People who first encountered the apocalypse zombies were all zombie attractors. They were all uncontrollably panicked and screaming incessantly. Only a very few clever people kept quiet and made no sound. Cao Chuan stood on the balcony at this moment, enjoying the baptism of the early morning sun. His entire being seemed to be purified in some way. Perfect. Cao Chuan smiled. When the fog rolled in yesterday, Cao Chuan made a phone call, then went to the back garden and sent Chen Kiki there. After that, he returned to this world. He carefully felt the dense fog, which contained a myriad of gases and seemingly even a sense of spiritual energy. His body showed no signs of mutation. Otherwise, Cao Chuan would have just flashed away and never come back. Fortunately, he did not. Perhaps some equipment was placed around the house to protect his mental faculties. Now that it was light, the fog dispersed, and the temperature began to rise. It went from -10 degrees Celsius at night, gradually reaching above zero, then 10, 15, and 20 degrees Celsius. By noon, it was estimated to reach over 30 degrees Celsius. The biggest change was the air, which instantly became much fresher. Although it was still a bit worse than the back garden, it was much better compared to the previous blue star. Cao Chuan suddenly had a guess. The apocalypse is actually a kind of purification. When human civilization is completely severed, the world will self-repair. Zombies are merely accelerating this extinction process. Eventually, zombies and other mutated species will also gradually die out. Perhaps after 100 years, 200 years, or 1,000 years, the world will completely transform into its best state. Once all traces of humanity disappear, the world will once again enter a new reincarnation, with new humans or other dominant species emerging. Cao Chuan did not know if this was an intentional act by the heavenly Tao consciousness, or a specific process of demise. This had little to do with Cao Chuan. He merely sighed with emotion. He stood on the balcony and smoked a cigarette. Zombies appeared below. They were not much different from what was seen in films. They were all equally disgusting. Cao Chuan had no intention of going to Beijing. There was no need. They definitely had their own methods there and probably would not run into much trouble. Moreover, Cao Chuan also had links with various planes. Although he gave the wormhole to the high-level officials, he still left a back door during technology development. From the back garden, one could go to the Republic of China era or to the tribal age. Otherwise, how could Cao Chuan have confidently sent those women to the Republic of China? Although they were not main characters, Cao Chuan did not have a habit of sending women away. Now, only one last thing remained. That was to take Wang Manny away. Without Wang Manny, the halo of Zhang Sheng would be completely gone. In the future, he would just be a very strong ordinary person. Perhaps he would comfortably struggle through the apocalypse. He would not lack supplies. The high-level officials would begin rescue operations in batches, sending survivors to 2 worlds, but they would not let Zhang Sheng go to the Republic of China. As for the future fate of Zhang Sheng, Cao Chuan did not think much about it. Chapter 465. On Zhang Sheng's side, thick fog had already drifted into the air raid shelter. The moment Zhang Sheng saw it, he was overjoyed. In his previous life, it was also foggy. He had thought it was just ordinary light fog, but after the fog dissipated, the world completely collapsed. Now it was happening again. From December until now, Zhang Sheng had fled to many places, and not once had fog appeared. This bout of fog brought him hope. Unfortunately, the fog lingered, causing Zhang Sheng's excitement to plummet. He vaguely remembered that in the last apocalypse, the thick fog came fiercely and dissipated quickly, lasting less than 30 minutes in total. But this fog had already been there for 3 hours. It was long past dark, and the fog had not dispersed, instead becoming even denser. Zhang Sheng subconsciously thought it was just ordinary mountain mist and miasma. Soon, however, he realized something was wrong. The temperature was plummeting, just like in his previous life. Fortunately, Zhang Sheng was well prepared. Combined with his robust physique, he took out a sleeping bag, started a fire, and brewed a cup of chrysanthemum tea. His mood brightened again. Although he did not know why this thick fog was dispersing so slowly, it was definitely not right. Most likely, the apocalypse had arrived. It was too cold. Mountain forests in spring could be chilly, but they were not this cold. The most important thing was that his phone had no signal. By the time dawn broke, Zhang Sheng packed his belongings and left. Not long after, he saw zombies in the village and town at the foot of the mountain. He laughed 3 times, and all the gloom inside him vanished. He waved his fists at the sky and cursed. "I told you, did I not? The apocalypse is here. They chased me like a dog. Let us see if you will die now." Zhang Sheng furiously vented his emotions. He felt that he was a good person. He had warned the authorities about the apocalypse in advance, giving them time to prepare. He had also personally killed beasts to prevent them from causing chaos. Yet, he was still hunted. He kept venting, chopping at the surrounding trees until several large trees were cut down. The commotion attracted zombies. Zhang Sheng was fearless. He rushed forward with his tang saber, striking down, then performing a slide tackle, and finally standing up. Several zombies were already behind him. Zhang Sheng did not even turn his head, walking away. A series of thuds echoed. Immediately after, the zombies fell to the ground, their heads cleanly severed. Zhang Sheng resembled a cold, emotionless swordsman, his invincible stance evident. He reluctantly turned back, looked at the headless zombie corpses, used his tang saber to cut open their chests, and dug out several source crystals. These things were treasures. He had been so focused on venting and showing off that he almost forgot about them. He did not mind the rotten flesh and bloodstains on the crystals. He wiped them off and examined them. They were similar to crystals, but their exterior was soft, somewhat like a slightly harder candy. The texture was good. Moreover, long-term wearing of this item could enhance one's strength, and its benefits were not limited to that. It could also provide warmth in winter and coolness in summer. As long as one wore this source crystal, whether it was minus 20 degrees at night, or 35, or even 40 degrees during the day, 1 meter around the source crystal would maintain an optimal human body temperature. With this, one would not freeze or starve to death. Unfortunately, no one knew about it in the early stage, and the number of people freezing to death increased daily. I heard people say in my previous life that the drop rate of this item from early stage zombies was almost 100%. However, for those zombies with secondary or tertiary infections, the probability of finding source crystals was greatly reduced. The zombies encountered now likely all have source crystals. Zhang Sheng was overjoyed. Zombies that mutated directly had a very high probability, almost 100%, of having source crystals. However, for those who became zombies after being bitten, the presence of source crystals was rare. The later it got, the fewer source crystals there were. The early stage was the best time. As long as enough crystals were collected now, one could be as powerful as they wanted in the future. Moreover, Zhang Sheng did not lack food. He felt like he was the only true god in this world. I need to collect source crystals quickly. Then, return to Zonghai. Wang Mani's figure appeared in his mind. Class monitor, hold on a little longer. I will be back very soon. Zhang Sheng began a long-distance dash, constantly killing zombies, digging for source crystals, and then hurrying on without a moment of rest. He hoped to return to Zonghai as soon as possible, because the class monitor goddess was in extreme danger. It was Thursday, and she must be at school. It had not been long since school started, which meant there were many zombies in the school. In the apocalypse, schools and hospitals were the most terrifying places. They were full of doors, corridors, and nooks where danger could emerge at any time. Even girls' dormitories were not safe. You never knew what was hiding behind a door or around a corner. Recalling such a scene sent shivers down his spine. If he had not been chased by the authorities for so long, he would not have run this far. If he were still in Zonghai, it would only take him a day or two to carve a bloody path and rush to the school to rescue the class monitor goddess. Now, although it was the suburbs, the distance was too far. Even if he walked back without caring about anything else, it would take more than 10 days. Zhang Sheng could only pray, hoping the class monitor goddess could hold on. In Zonghai, the situation was more troublesome than imagined. Too many people meant more zombies. Too many cars meant blocked roads. The fog started at 5 in the afternoon, which was the beginning of rush hour. Zombies did not appear immediately, so even with the thick fog, many people tried to drive home. Then came the traffic accidents, explosions, and crashes. The entire city became a mess in one day. Even if old Cao wanted to go on foot, it would be a troublesome matter. The zombies were endless, and he was afraid of infection. It was not that he feared being bitten, but when you kill them, rotten flesh and blood splatter everywhere. If it got into his mouth, it would be a problem. Therefore, old Cao prepared a helicopter. Chapter 466. The catastrophe was indeed directly related to the dense fog. The gases and unknown substances within the dense fog destroyed 70% of the technology on Blue Star. High-tech equipment, such as helicopters, became almost entirely unusable. The more advanced the technology, the more thoroughly it was destroyed. But Cao Chuan had them all. Items repurchased from it were no longer affected by the dense fog, since the fog had already dissipated. The only task remaining for Cao Chuan in this world was to retrieve Wang Mani. It involved hundreds of millions in luck. Cao Chuan was rich now, but he would not let go of even a tiny bit of luck. Moreover, with the arrival of the apocalypse, Cao Chuan's system began the process of settling. However, the system was still in fusion. The settlement was stuck and had not been finalized for Cao Chuan. Damn it, this will not take 10 years, will it? Cao Chuan was helpless. But it did not matter. He still had tens of billions of yuan, and the mall could continue to be used, so he was not short on money for now. When not dealing with a child of destiny, the mall was optional. This is how Cao Chuan was. When he could rely on himself, he used his brain. He only resorted to external help to solve problems when there was truly no other way. At this moment, at Dandin University, Campus 3, in the female dormitory, Wang Mani was not in good condition. The temperature dropped suddenly last night, catching everyone off guard. Wang Mani had not prepared much warm clothing. Even if she had, it would not have helped against the shock and fear. She could not help but be scared. It was too bizarre. The dense fog was all-pervasive. All the windows in the three-person dorm were sealed shut, but as the dense fog rose, it gradually seeped into the bedroom. This dense fog carried a hint of chill, and the air grew colder and colder. This three-person dorm had bunk beds with desks underneath, and she had taken out everything she could to cover herself. It was not that she did not want to go out and buy supplies, but there simply was not enough time. Outside, the power was out. The water was off. Cell phone signals were cut, and no one had cash on hand. Since the arrival of the smart era, Cao Chuan's company had achieved widespread adoption. Super first-tier cities like Shanghai were the first places to change. Streets and alleys were like 10 years in the future, with QR codes everywhere. Many people had already become accustomed to mobile payments in just 2 months, and no longer carried cash. Moreover, late at night, everywhere seemed to have lost power. Apart from some signs of life in the dormitory area, the absolute darkness outside made people's spines chill, and their hair stand on end. Her 2 roommates wanted to go out to buy supplies, planning to ask the school shops to put it on their tabs, because who could endure such cold? Then her 2 roommates disappeared into the mist. They did not return after half an hour, or even 2 hours. Finally, they did not return all night. Actually, no one considered them getting lost, because there were shops not far from the dormitory area. Something must have happened, and it was not just her 2 roommates who did not return all night. People from other dorms also went out to buy supplies and never came back. Teachers could not be contacted either, and everyone smelled something out of the ordinary. No one dared to leave their dorm room again. Wang Manny also reacted. Even if Zhang Sheng had not mentioned the fog, as a destined heroine, she always had good intuition, and it was quite accurate. She just felt that this fog was not normal. The water and power outages were also not normal. The loss of signal was even more abnormal. And the fact that her 2 roommates had not returned meant something had definitely happened. Apocalypse. These 2 words suddenly popped into her mind. Class monitor goddess Wang Manny's heart skipped a beat. She immediately locked the dorm room door, then took the quilts and mattresses of her 2 roommates to her side, barely enduring the bone-chilling foggy night. More and more fog seeped into the dorm room. Gradually, she could not see anything in front of her. It truly became pitch black. Occasionally, cries and whimpers came from outside, making it even more terrifying. She did not sleep much all night. She woke up startled as soon as she closed her eyes. Unable to see her surroundings, she could only huddle in her quilt, trembling. It was a difficult night to endure. Finally, the rain stopped, and the morning sun arrived. The fog dispersed, and the clouds parted. The fog inside the room also suddenly dissipated. Wang Manny had just woken up from a nightmare, and seeing the fog dissipate, she saw the golden, dazzling, and enchanting light of the morning sun outside. Wang Manny felt that the ordeal was over. She took out her phone to check if there was a signal, but the screen was black. She could not turn it on no matter what she tried. It might be broken, she was not sure. But thankfully, there was sunlight, the fog had cleared, it was not so cold, and she could sleep a bit more. She was too tired. However, before she could even be happy, screams and wails came from outside. Those screams penetrated to the bone, as if someone was having their bones scraped. It was a bone-chilling pain. Only such pain could elicit such screams. It was too terrifying. Wang Manny's heart tightened. Screams came one after another, and there were sounds of frantic running in the corridor, back and forth. They were accompanied by shouts. Zombies. There are zombies. Ah. Help, help me. Ah. At first, Wang Manny did not hear clearly, but later she heard it was zombies. Apocalypse. Had the apocalypse really arrived? Wang Manny dared not move an inch. She huddled on the upper bunk, hiding under the covers. Finally, she covered her ears, her entire face streaked with tears. She was terrified. She did not know how long it took for the sounds outside to completely disappear. Either the screaming students had led the zombies away, or they had all been eaten. There might still be survivors in other dorms, but no one dared to make the slightest sound. After a long time, confirming there was no movement outside, Wang Manny, her face tear-streaked like pear blossoms, quietly sniffled. She wiped away the tears on her face and decided to get out of bed to see. She at least needed to know what had happened. She was not going outside anyway, but to the balcony to look out. This 3-person dorm had a large independent balcony, and the balcony also had a door. She did not dare hide on the bed now, because it was less than 3 meters from the main door. The balcony, however, had an independent door and was at least 7 meters from the dorm room's main door. The balcony seemed safer, and it had sunlight. Creak. As she came down, she stepped on a wooden step. She had never noticed such a sound before, but in the current dead silence, it was infinitely amplified. Wang Manny's expression changed. She dared not move her sock-clad feet. Do not ask why she slept in socks. It was truly too cold last night. Bang, bang, bang. The next second, a huge sound came from outside the door. It was not knocking. It was a crash against the door. Wang Manny was so startled that she fell directly. Disregarding her usual demeanor, she scrambled away. Tears streamed down her face as she ran to the balcony. She locked the balcony door behind her and curled up in the corner, trembling. Even though the sun shone on her and the temperature was over 10 degrees Celsius, her whole body felt icy cold. Her heart was equally chilled. Curled up in the corner, she desperately covered her ears, her body shaking, her face ashen. Chapter 467. Cao Chuan arrived. He reached the previously marked location in 3 minutes by helicopter. He knew Wang Manny was in the 3rd campus district. When the thick fog arrived, he had Loli lock onto Wang Manny's location one last time. He found her in her dorm room before finally calling the high-level officials. Only one night had passed, so if nothing unexpected happened, Wang Manny would still be in her dorm room. There was no need to worry about her being in danger so soon. The destined heroine would not get into trouble that easily. At this point, Zhang Sheng, the child of destiny, would need at least another month to return. Even if he rushed frantically without any delays, it would still take him 10 days to half a month. According to the so-called luck rules, Wang Manny would not be in too much danger within half a month. To be conservative, she would not be in trouble within a week. Cao Chuan arrived at the school and landed the helicopter in the stadium. The stadium was empty. This was not a sudden apocalypse. It was not the sudden appearance of zombies. At 5 in the evening yesterday, there were people playing soccer, running, and many young couples or single students reading in the stands. But when the heavy fog rolled in, these people quickly dispersed. The stadium was completely empty at this time. This was definitely an excellent place of refuge. They would only need to weld shut the surrounding large iron gates and reinforce them. Then, this place would be the most comfortable safe zone in the early stage of the apocalypse. A small temporary survivor base could be built here. The helicopter sound was enormous, attracting all the surrounding zombies. Unfortunately, they could not get in quickly. Before leaving last night, the stadium staff had already locked the large iron gate on the west side. Cao Chuan released some combat-type immortal masters. These people might not be a match for the child of destiny, but they were absolutely awesome against early-stage zombies. They did not use hot weapons. Instead, each carried a tang dao, long and sharp enough for the early stage. He sent them out to clear the surrounding zombies. Afterward, they would seal off the surrounding gates. Simultaneously, they would begin building defensive towers on top of the iron railings, similar to those in games. They would be sufficient to guard against early-stage zombies. Cao Chuan planned to build a survivor base here. It would not take much effort. It was merely a matter of speaking. Later, he could even scheme against Zhang Sheng a bit, ensuring he would not be so leisurely in the apocalypse. Although Cao Chuan would not kill him, the thought of him having an entire storage space filled with food and supplies made him unwilling for the kid to be too comfortable. Why should everyone else suffer so much while you live so comfortably? Do you not understand the principle of not fearing scarcity, but inequality? We must come from the masses and go to the masses. Besides, instead of letting him idle away in the apocalypse, why not find him something to do? Moral blackmail is meaningless. The child of destiny in the apocalypse has no morality in their innate genes, making them difficult to blackmail. So, he would find him something to do that he could not stop doing. As for how Zhang Sheng could be manipulated, that would depend on what kind of effect this survivor base could achieve. 3 days passed in a flash. Cao Chuan had established a fully enclosed survivor base at the stadium. Only the west gate allowed exit. The northeast side was completely sealed off. The iron fence on the south side was reinforced with concrete, and a 4-meter-high arrow tower was built. As long as someone stood on it with firearms, or bows and arrows, they could engage the zombies below from a higher position. In short, this place was built. 3 days had passed, and it was time to start winning people over. Over these past few days, Cao Chuan had also dispatched drones to observe the situation at the female dorms. He confirmed that Wang Manny was still there, and not in significant danger, so he was not in a hurry to rescue her. Rescuing people could not be rushed. One had to wait until they were utterly desperate, then appear as a savior to maximize the benefit. 3 days was a critical point. Without food or drink, and constantly living in fear, many people had already jumped from dorm buildings in the past 2 days because their minds had collapsed. In the original plot, Wang Manny also seemed to have waited 3 days. Her mental state was nearing its breaking point, at which time the child of destiny appeared. Unfortunately, the original plot had changed drastically. The child of destiny was still some distance from Zonghai, and could not make it back at this time. For these 3 days, Wang Manny had not left her dorm room at all. She did everything stealthily, not daring to make a sound, because there were 2 zombies moving in the hallway. These 2 zombies were like the most loyal guards, constantly protecting the peace of this floor. Wang Manny did not know if there were any other surviving classmates on this floor. She was not sure, and did not dare to go out, or even approach the dorm room door. Fortunately, Wang Manny had prepared some food and drinks beforehand. She had stored them in her cabinet 3 months ago, and had not had time to take them away when the holidays started. They had not expired yet. It was these things that kept Wang Manny from starving and from having to go out to find water. It was also fortunate that this was a dorm room. Many dorm rooms had plenty of food, including her 2 former roommates, whose cabinets also contained snacks, chocolates, and drinks. But the problem was, there was no water now. Everyone would hoard some food, but very little water, and 3 days had exhausted it. Now Wang Manny had not had any water for a day. Her lips were starting to crack, especially with the heat during the day and no water to replenish. She began to feel desperate. She could last a few more days without food, but without water, and in such an environment with extreme day and night temperature differences, including the terrifying surroundings, she did not know how much longer she could hold on. She also did not know when dehydration would set in. Once symptoms of dehydration appeared, it would basically be over. A thought flashed through her mind. Should I go out and find some water if I cannot stand it? But this thought was extinguished in an instant. She did not have the guts, especially with zombies in the hallway outside the door, and no weapons whatsoever in the dorm. This was still the 5th floor, so she could not climb out from the balcony either. Below were aimless walking dead. More importantly, there were also very powerful ones, possibly ability users who had mutated, making it even more dangerous. Wang Manny had observed these zombies on the basketball court before. They were not sluggish and did not run that slowly, moving at the speed of an ordinary adult woman. This also dispelled her idea of going out to seek a way to survive. She simply could not fight them. The fear in her mind prevented her, and most other survivors, from daring to face the zombies. Even ability users did not dare, let alone ordinary people. In the early stage, even those with firearms might not truly dare to directly confront zombies. Ha, is that? Just as Wang Manny's mind was filled with chaotic thoughts, she suddenly saw a figure on the basketball court. A man. Actually, it was not strange to see a figure. These past 2 days, a few people had always risked going out, otherwise, they would starve to death. But the outcome was self-evident. They died horribly. But now, this person was swaggering across the basketball court, seemingly unconcerned about the surrounding zombies. Those zombies quickly detected the scent and movement of a living person. Gritting their teeth, they scurried towards the man. Chapter 468. Just as over a dozen zombies surrounded the man, Wang Manny did not dare to look at the scene ahead. She immediately turned her face away, slowly lowered her head, and closed her eyes. That kind of scene was too terrifying. She had seen it once a few days ago, and had nightmares all night long. She had not recovered since. Wang Manny could fully imagine how terrifying the scene would be. There would not even be a chance to revive. He would be torn to shreds. Some people who died could revive, which meant turning into a zombie. But some people, once dead, were just dead. If their bodies could not even be reassembled, how could they turn into a zombie? Thinking of the scene of someone being torn limb from limb, Wang Manny's hands and feet turned cold. But after a few seconds, she did not hear the screams she had imagined. Wang Manny felt a flicker of doubt. She quietly opened her eyes and glanced over. Immediately, her eyes widened in shock. The dozen zombies were all dead, lying motionless on the ground with their heads missing. The man continued to walk towards the basketball court. What had happened? Wang Manny could not imagine how the man killed the zombies. There was no sound, and he was too fast. She had closed her eyes and opened them. In less than 10 seconds, the dozen zombies were gone. Moreover, the man did not have any weapons in his hand. How had he killed them? Wang Manny suddenly felt a surge of hope. She wanted to shout. She wanted to call for help. But the next second, she stopped. She did not dare to shout, because there were 2 zombies outside the dormitory door behind her. If she made any noise, the zombies would ram the door. The force was immense. She felt that her dormitory door would not last much longer. If it were broken open, she would be finished. The door on the balcony side was glass, even less resistant to impact. It would shatter in minutes. Wang Manny became anxious. She knew this was an opportunity to call for help, and did not have time to consider the man's identity, let alone how he killed the zombies. In short, he was very strong. Thump, thump. Wang Manny threw down a high-heeled shoe. There were many shoes on the balcony. It attracted the man's attention. Then Wang Manny clasped her hands together, a pleading expression on her face. Although she said nothing, her intention to ask for help was very clear. This man was quite handsome. As he got closer, Wang Manny saw his appearance. He was handsome and very calm, not with a cold expression. Unlike what she had just imagined, this man had a smile, looking very gentle. In an instant, this smile seeped into her heart. Wang Manny saw hope. Please, save me. Wang Manny clasped her hands, speaking without making a sound, only mouthing the words. She was not sure if he could see clearly, so she tried to open her mouth as wide as possible. The man pondered for a few seconds, then nodded. Wang Manny was overjoyed and wept. If allowed, she would have knelt before him. This rescue would be no difficulty at all. It was merely a matter of clearing a few zombies along the way upstairs. Upon reaching Wang Manny's dormitory, he knocked on the door. Wang Manny's heart accelerated. This was not the sound of banging, but rhythmic knocking. It could not be zombies. Hesitating for less than a second, Wang Manny opened the door. Finally, she saw a living person. Wang Manny instantly burst into tears and instinctively rushed towards him. This was not love. It was merely the genetic instinct of fellow humans to huddle together for warmth. In despair, encountering the only other human, everyone would feel this sense of intimacy. One must know that it was only the beginning of the apocalypse. Human hearts had not yet completely succumbed to darkness. If it were a few months into the apocalypse, she would find that human hearts had completely changed. No one could be trusted, and no one dared to give any genuine sincerity. People would die. She did not know how long she hugged him until the man's voice sounded in her ear. Had enough hugging. If you have, let me catch my breath. Sorry, you smell a bit sour. How about you take a shower first? Wang Manny cared about her appearance. She had not considered hygiene in the past few days. Now that someone mentioned it, Wang Manny wished she could find a hole to crawl into. She had been a goddess since childhood, beautiful from a young age. When had she ever been disliked? Times had changed. She was disliked, and she could not even get angry. She only felt humiliated. Wang Manny stepped back, lowered her head, her small face beat red and somewhat uneasy. Cao Chuan said, "Forget it. I know you do not have water to wash. Let us go." Go where? Wang Manny instinctively did not dare to go out. Cao Chuan, however, turned and left. Follow me. Wang Manny said anxiously, I still have some things. Do not bother, let us go. Wang Manny ultimately followed him. Her heart was in a turmoil, both scared and worried. She was scared of the unsafe outside. She was worried that he seemed to dislike her very much. She was torn between hope and fear. Downstairs, Wang Mani's heart was in her throat. The outside temperature was even higher, over 30 degrees Celsius, and the air was filled with a nauseating stench, like the smell of a corpse. This stench seemed to have no source. It felt as if the entire air was permeated with this foul odor. Before, inside the dormitory, it had not felt so pungent. After all, the balcony also had windows, which were all sealed shut. Wang Mani cautiously followed behind, occasionally glancing around to see if there were any zombies. She also occasionally looked at the man's back. She really wanted to ask where they were going, but she did not dare. She was afraid that after being disliked, he would simply ignore her, and she would completely break down. She was usually gentle, content, and not a strong-willed person, so she behaved very obediently. They walked on. Along the way, they did not encounter any living zombies, but there were many dead ones, obviously killed by the man on his way here. Now returning the same way, it was actually safe. They arrived at the stadium. Only the west gate was open, and there were no traces of zombies around. It had been cleaned up. Furthermore, at the west gate, a large lantern was hanging at the entrance, with the character celebration written on it. It was unclear if it was for celebrating May Day, or something else. In any case, only one was hung. The others had not been put up before the apocalypse broke out. The west gate slowly opened. Inside, there were men with swords guarding it. Wang Mani followed behind, bewildered, and entered the stadium. After entering, she felt that this place was different from before. It seemed to have been rebuilt, and apparently, only the west gate allowed entry and exit, with people guarding it with knives. Her sense of security instantly increased. Cao Chuan took her to the locker room. Go take a shower first. Here, is there water here? Wang Mani was stunned. Cao Chuan glanced at her. If there was no water, would I tell you to take a shower? You really do smell sour. Hurry up. I will put new clothes in the locker room later, and you can change into them. Oh. Cao Chuan left, and Wang Mani was confused for a long time. She also realized it. There was actually water here. That was not the main point. The main point was why take a shower. Was it going to happen? She was not ready yet. But this was not the time to think about that at all. Chapter 469. Wang Mani wanted to cry. Not only was there water, but there was also warm water. She did not know how there was water available when the utilities had been cut off. Here, there was not only water, but also electricity. Wang Mani had too many questions, but she did not dare to wash for too long, always feeling guilty about wasting water. She wondered how long this supply would last for drinking. She only used 20 minutes, which was very short since she had to wash her hair. Normally, it would take at least an hour. After washing, she wrapped herself in a new bath towel and went to the changing room. She was quiet, seemingly worried someone might be there. After confirming it was safe, Wang Mani revealed her perfect curves and quickly changed into new clothes. She put on a Japanese-style school uniform. She picked up the hairdryer nearby and lightly blew her hair dry. Water had a purifying ability. After a bath, one felt refreshed, and her appearance even improved a bit. Coming out of the changing room, she ran straight into Cao Chuan. Cao Chuan looked her up and down a few times. Her legs were straight and slender, and wearing a cinched school uniform, she indeed had some assets. After all, she was a grown woman. Under Cao Chuan's undisguised gaze, Wang Mani held her head high and showed herself off, as if to tell him that she was naturally beautiful and was only in distress. She wanted him to see that there was nothing wrong with her. Not bad, Cao Chuan said with a slow nod. Barely good enough to be my woman. Hearing the first part, Wang Mani smiled, but the words that followed immediately froze her expression. Cao Chuan turned and told her to follow him. Wang Mani opened her mouth, wanting to say that she was not that kind of woman, but in the end, she held back. She did not know what her mindset was. It was a bit muddled, and her heart was beating fast. She knew she seemed to have no other choice at this moment, and the other party was very handsome, and had saved her. She did not dislike him. She just found him too direct. If he had been willing to pursue her, she would not have refused. Being too direct felt more like a transaction, and she could not accept or adapt to it so quickly. Yet, she could not refuse, which made her feel very conflicted. She followed the man into another room, where there was a table full of dishes, wine, and meat. Haven't eaten for a few days, have you? Cao Chuan said with a smile. These are prepared for you. There was a meal, and it even included big dishes like braised pork ribs. Normally, it would be nothing, as Wang Mani's family was not short on money, but now, Wang Mani swallowed hard. Eat. I will come back to eat with you later, Cao Chuan said, and then left. He had already secured Wang Mani, so he naturally had to start setting a small trap to keep Zhang Sheng busy. It would be easy to take him down. There was wine available. It was not that Cao Chuan forced her to drink, but after she ate some dishes, she started pouring for herself. When Cao Chuan returned, she had already drunk 2 bottles of wine by herself. Things progressed smoothly. Feelings could be set aside for now, as it was directly about luck. Cao Chuan originally did not take her seriously, planning to send her away later, but the luck she returned to him shocked even him. Zhang Sheng's halo shattered. A system notification sounded. All children of destiny in this plane had been successfully dealt with. Cao Chuan was congratulated for acquiring the title of King of the Plane. He could choose a plane to become his main plane. He was also congratulated for acquiring a rule-based skill called God Mode. A string of notifications made Cao Chuan dizzy. To summarize, all children of destiny were considered defeated, as destroying their halos counted as killing them. This integrated plane had now been ruled by Cao Chuan. Additionally, because the main plane was already corrupted, Cao Chuan gained the qualification for a new main plane. In the main plane designated by him, he would be the king. He was no longer just a child of destiny, but the lord of the plane. The rule-based skill, God Mode, was exactly what it sounded like. It was somewhat similar to a primordial spirit in cultivation, allowing his heavenly, and divine sense to extend outwards through meditation. As long as his mental energy was strong enough, Cao Chuan could use God Mode to view any corner of the entire world. In the future, he would not need to use listening devices to eavesdrop. As long as he wanted to see something, closing his eyes would activate God Mode. This consumed a lot of mental energy, but as long as Cao Chuan continued to cultivate his scripture, he would soon be able to live a long life and fully cover his territory with his divine sense. Everything was under control. The territory could also be designated by Cao Chuan as his main plane. The entire universe was his. Looking at the sleeping person beside him, Cao Chuan smiled slightly. This girl indeed had some good fortune, serving as the grand finale. This indicated she was a blessed person. He decided not to send her away, but to take her with him instead. Cao Chuan made a simple decision, and at the same time, his simulacrums had already started to act. They dispersed to absorb the survivors within the school. They found some teachers, both male and female, brought them over, and had them take over the survivor base. Cao Chuan also showed kindness, allowing more students to survive. At the same time, he left some supplies for these people, including items for warmth. Over the next 2 days, Wang Mani also pledged her loyalty and helped Cao Chuan with the work of rescuing various students. 4 days later, Cao Chuan found the teachers, held a simple meeting, and left behind many things, including cold weapons. Everyone, I am leaving. I will leave this place to you, he said. The group of teachers was dumbfounded. They did not know why Cao Chuan chose to leave. It was so safe here. Would going outside not be dangerous? Cao Chuan smiled. I have things to do. Manny and I are leaving here. I will entrust this place to all of you. A somewhat attractive young married woman looked at Cao Chuan wistfully. Where are you going? Will you come back? We are going to Hainan, and perhaps we will not be back, Cao Chuan said. Finally, Cao Chuan left the stadium under the fervent gazes of hundreds of students and dozens of teachers. He did not kill the ones who were eager for him to leave before he departed. This was his last gift to Zhang Sheng. Why go to Hainan? Because Zhang Sheng would soon return to look for the class monitor. He would naturally find this stadium, and after numerous inquiries, he would surely know that the class monitor had left to go to Hainan. If Zhang Sheng had any thoughts, he would inevitably chase towards Hainan. Cao Chuan had not gone far, so perhaps he could catch up. It would be interesting to see Zhang Sheng run all the way to the South China Sea. This matter was concluded. Cao Chuan returned to his secondary world. The date for the wedding was set for 2 months later. Chapter 470. He decided to designate the back garden as my main plane. The sensation in that instant was truly peculiar. It seemed as if he felt a greater affinity with the entire world, with every flower, every blade of grass, and every tree. His entire being was filled with joy. He felt happy and strangely gentle. At this moment, Cao Chuan was no longer a villain in the strict sense, but he could not be considered a righteous character either. In the consciousness of the heavenly Tao, all living beings are equal. The heavenly Tao consciousness of the back garden had become Cao Chuan's own primary consciousness. Consequently, when facing any living creature in the main plane, whether human, animal, or even a blade of grass, there was no distinction. They all possessed life. Therefore, killing a person was almost no different from casually plucking a blade of grass by the roadside. As this concept of universal equality took hold, Cao Chuan felt his sense of detachment deepen. He then tested a rule-based skill, known as God Mode. To put it simply, it acted as a primordial spirit. In that instant, it could cover the entire capital Fengdu of the Great Qian dynasty. It continued to extend outwards. It consumed a fair amount of mental energy, but not too much, and it remained within a controllable range. The perspective was fascinating, much like dreaming. His mind felt unfettered. He could fly, burrow into the ground, or pass through walls. Wherever his thoughts traveled, he could observe anything he desired. Soon, his consciousness covered the entire Great Qian dynasty. In other words, it could easily cover an area equivalent to 2 provinces of the Blue Star. As expected of a rule-based skill, it was more powerful than he had imagined, and the energy consumption remained manageable. Of course, this was also because Cao Chuan had a solid foundation. He had improved countless things over the years, especially the qi refining technique from before. It was at least divine rank, although it was slightly inferior to rule-based skills. But the mental energy provided by the qi refining technique was enough to fuel God Mode. Next was the Kyushu region, covering an area of 1 million square kilometers. This was effectively the limit. Cao Chuan was not disappointed. On the contrary, he was even more excited. With this perspective, coupled with his imperial bodyguards, secret guards, and monitoring equipment from various places, he could soon ensure that the entire Kyushu region held no secrets from him. He did not need to worry about the matters on the Blue Star. There were no children of destiny remaining there, as that world was locked in an apocalyptic stage. As for the Republic of China, he would go there to accompany the women when he had time. As for the war, it had no direct relation to Cao Chuan. and he would not personally intervene. This day, Cao Chuan arrived at the imperial palace. Bu Yao, Lu Sihan, and Cao Shixuan were talking with the Empress Dowager. These three girls were very endearing. They had distinct personalities. Besides all being beautiful, their characters were different. Bu Yao was very much like the big silly Bu Jinyan, boisterous and full of adorable energy, which made her very likable. Lu Sihan, although not the oldest of the three, was the most mature. After all, she had no parents from a young age, so she had to manage the household and become independent early. She had a very reserved personality. As for Cao Shixuan, she was a sleep god. She usually looked dull and cute, but after 12 hours of sleep, she would be a bit mischievous, and her personality was also changeable. The three girls together were a good match. They could complement each other. Dad, husband. As the female official outside shouted that the king of Chu had arrived, Cao Chuan entered the Empress Dowager's palace. The three girls rose upon seeing Cao Chuan. Cao Chuan smiled, giving each of them a small hug. The Empress Dowager's eyes flashed with a hint of resentment. This scoundrel was never in the royal palace. How long had it been since he returned? However, all four women noticed that Cao Chuan seemed to have changed quite a bit since his last return. It was a feeling they could not quite describe. Was he more powerful? Perhaps. But the feeling Cao Chuan gave everyone at this moment was more of an illusion of the Tao-following nature. Cao Chuan stood there motionless, and besides seeing him with their eyes, they could not sense any internal skill or mental energy. It was as if, at this moment, Cao Chuan had merged with all of nature. After some chatting and laughing, the three girls linked arms and went to the beast garden to play. Only the king and queen remained in the hall. Naturally, there was a period of intimacy, as it had been a while since they had been together. When are you leaving this time? The Empress Dowager asked softly, feeling weak, but completely satisfied. I am not leaving, Cao Chuan said. The Empress Dowager suddenly looked up at his chin. Cao Chuan shook his head. Things in other places have been resolved, so I am not leaving. The Empress Dowager did not know what he had to resolve, and she did not ask. As long as he was not leaving, that was enough. However, the Empress Dowager felt a little jealous. Are you preparing for the grand wedding, so you cannot bear to leave? Cao Chuan chuckled. If our Empress Dowager is willing, tonight we can skip the wedding ceremony and go straight to the bridal chamber. The Empress Dowager snorted lightly. After some playful banter with her, Cao Chuan asked her to get up. Only then did they begin to chat seriously. Who do you plan to invite to this grand wedding? The Empress Dowager asked softly. The King of Chu's grand wedding should have been a major event for the Great Qian, and all civil and military officials should certainly attend. However, Cao Chuan's imperial bodyguards did not have good relations with any officials. This also meant that the Ministry of Rights and the Empress Dowager's side could not make decisions for the King of Chu or invite the various officials in advance. It is a momentous occasion for the whole world to celebrate. Naturally, everyone should share in the joy. At that time, besides heinous criminals, even those with minor offenses should be pardoned. Also, notify the various courts in Kyushu directly to send people to attend. Let them also issue a general amnesty to celebrate my marriage as the King of Chu alongside the Great Qian. This grand wedding was not just for one consort. Almost everyone was included. The location of the grand wedding was directly arranged by the Empress Dowager in the Kailan Hall within the palace, a royal-grade venue. It showed how much the Empress Dowager valued the King of Chu's wedding and how much trust she displayed. This also dispelled many rumors about discord between the King of Chu and the Empress. After all, the King of Chu was too arrogant, and the Empress's expression and attitude were not very good when she saw him, which led to many conjectures. The Empress Dowager was stunned. I can understand inviting various countries in Kyushu, but asking them to also issue a general amnesty, is that not a bit too much? The Empress Dowager did not finish her sentence, but her meaning was clear. Was he not taking himself a bit too seriously? The Great Qian was not the largest dynasty in Kyushu. Even with the imperial bodyguards, it was only powerful in the surrounding areas at most. Cao Chuan smiled. Just do it this way. The main thing is to screen future cooperation partners. Then Cao Chuan explained his idea. It was clearly an impolite request, but not all would refuse. Strong nations, or dynasties at odds with the Great Qian, might directly refuse, or simply not send envoys to attend the King of Chu's wedding banquet. But smaller nations, or those who were submissive and wanted to curry favor with the Great Qian, might indeed send high-ranking envoys to the Great Qian, and would also issue a general amnesty, celebrating with the Great Qian. From this, one could distinguish which people could be subordinates, which people could be won over, and which people needed to be guarded against. Of course, it was also because Cao Chuan now had God mode, so he could not be influenced by appearances, and could directly eavesdrop on the opinions of the high-level officials of various countries regarding this matter. He could see which countries were truly close to the Great Qian, and not just pretending. He could also see, within some countries, which officials were anti-Qian, and which officials could be bribed. The imperial bodyguards could conquer, but they also needed people to govern the world. The more countries ruled in the future, the more civil officials for governance would be needed. Chapter 471. Ancient weddings were complex. Cao Chuan had not understood the depth of these traditions before, but now he realized how tedious they truly were. The date had been set 2 months prior, and various departments had been bustling with activity ever since. In any case, Cao Chuan did not need to concern himself with the details. The spring day arrived, marking the occasion of his marriage. Many officials were relieved by this development, as it meant Cao Chuan would be occupied, and would cease his recent wave of executions. For the past 2 months, the imperial bodyguards had purged many corrupt officials, leaving the atmosphere within the capital of Fengde tense. Grand Secretary Su had even feigned illness to stay home, avoiding the court for 2 months. He was likely waiting for the King of Chu to fall out of favor. Now, the King of Chu seemed closer to that downfall than ever. He had become increasingly arrogant, even daring to hold his wedding ceremony within the Kailan Hall of the Imperial Palace. It was a move that many viewed as a death sentence. The Empress Dowager had proposed the venue, but agreeing to it was a dangerous gamble. While the Empress Dowager and the Empress might offer such honors as a show of favor, accepting them was seen as presumptuous. Grand Secretary Su had witnessed many such favored officials in his lifetime. They rose to power quickly, but their falls were often even swifter. The more arrogant they became, the faster they plummeted. Consequently, Su chose not to confront the brute directly, preferring to feign illness. He did not retire to his hometown, but simply waited. As the older ministers retreated into the background, other officials followed suit, avoiding the king's sharp edge. They stopped criticizing the imperial bodyguards, either out of fear or out of a desperate desire to ignore the situation entirely. A public feast was set up outside the palace on the wedding day, inviting everyone in the capital to dine. This celebration lasted for 10 full days. Inside the palace, envoys from various nations sent gifts, with the rank and quantity of these offerings reflecting their political alliances. Bu Jinyan, who had been affectionately nicknamed the Big Fool, looked stunning today. As the princess consort, she wore a phoenix coronet and robes. Though she was not particularly tall, she wore high heels beneath her skirt, and her presence was commanding. Today, she was truly the center of attention. While Cao Chuan had always advocated for equality within his family, protocol required a strict hierarchy of princess consort, secondary consorts, and concubines. When the nuptial wine was consumed under the glow of red candles, Bu Jinyan displayed a rare hint of shyness as she called out to him. Cao Chuan did not tease her, choosing instead to enjoy a rare moment of tenderness. Outside the window, Bu Ya pulled a blushing Lu Han and Chao Shixuan close. They were eavesdropping. The girls were all adults now, and they had consumed enough wine at the banquet to be in high spirits. Bu Yao, whose status had risen as the king's eldest princess, had even been fawned over by noble women. Quiet, she whispered. Why is there no sound? Bu Yao tilted her head, looking at Lu Han and Chao Shixuan. She guessed, is it over? Are we too late? They were more knowledgeable now than they had been in the past. It had been over an hour since Cao Chuan left the banquet. They remained unwilling to give up, pressing their ears against the window to listen for movement. The red candles were still burning, so surely they had not finished so soon. Did you hear anything? A soft male voice suddenly spoke from behind them. No. Ouch. Bu Yao shook her head before turning around in a panic. Cao Chuan looked at them with a half-smile. He wore only a coat, revealing his chest muscles. Chao Shixuan and Lu Han immediately scrambled away. Bu Yao tried to run as well, but Cao Chuan caught her. I was wrong, she muttered, apologizing quickly. Cao Chuan shook his head and rubbed it. Let us go. I will take you back. How much did you drink? Did I not tell you to avoid alcohol? She hooked her arm around his, beaming. The wedding night was far from over, and Cao Chuan had duties to attend to in other halls. Since that grand wedding, he rarely left the king's residence, appearing only occasionally at the imperial palace. External affairs, however, continued to proceed in an orderly manner. A monetary system had been established, but this was only the first step. Mutual markets were expanding, and merchants had obtained agency rights from the great Qian dynasty, dealing in everything from clothing and food to weapons and horses. Nations that showed friendliness received top-tier goods. Cao Chuan maintained a cycle of lending and economic control, ensuring that the surrounding dynasties remained economically tied to the Great Qian. He controlled the currency and the advanced weapons, effectively making the Great Qian the hegemon of the continent. By the 7th year of the Chang'an era, the 9 provinces were unified. The empress had officially taken over the government. 8 years had passed in total. His eldest child, Junya, whose mother was Gong Yuhua, was already 8. The son born to Bu Jinyan was 6. There were 3 other children, and several more were still on the way. Chapter 472. A good report came from Great Liang. A new gold mine had been discovered on Fuzheng Island. In the 2nd year of Kyushu's unification, which was Chang'an's 8th year, Fuzheng Island was taken, and most of the dwarf race became the best miners. As for the women, they joined the overseas expedition fleet, and became assistants for the crew. The empress of Great Liang was Qin Yingxiu. It is necessary to mention Sword Servant Mountain. In these years, the martial arts world experienced 3 purges, resulting in hundreds of thousands of deaths, because these people were very active during the unification of Kyushu. This included Sword Servant Mountain. Although the mountain acted covertly, it still could not escape the imperial bodyguard's surveillance. So, in Chang'an's 5th year, during the 2nd purge of martial arts rebels, Gatling Bodhisattva captured Sword Servant Mountain. All the high-level officials were escorted to the capital, Fengdu of Great Qian, while the other disciples remained at Sword Servant Mountain. The mountain became another summer resort for the king of Chu. Chang'an's 9th year arrived. Cao Chuan's face remained unchanged. In these nearly 10 years, his appearance had not changed at all. Even the people around him had not changed much. Bu Jinyan was the same, even though she was pregnant with her second child now. Her belly was slightly large. Bu Jinyan only resembled a virtuous wife and loving mother when she was pregnant, becoming much more demure. Once the child was born, she would start to be carefree again. Honestly, Cao Chuan could not say which version of her he preferred, perhaps he liked both. Bu Jinyan's lively and cheerful nature was ageless. I feel like you have been a bit preoccupied lately. On the palace city wall, Bu Jinyan accompanied Cao Chuan, gazing into the distance. He was waiting for news. A fleet would soon return from Europa. Although his god mode could see it now, he needed this news to let the world know that he, the king of Chu, had once again conquered land no less than Kyushu, expanding his territory again. Cao Chuan smiled and retorted, preoccupied? What could I be preoccupied with? Do not give me that. The moment your butt wiggles, I know what kind of crap you are about to take. Cao Chuan laughed and shook his head. He was indeed preoccupied, but it had nothing to do with the fleet returning to Kyushu. It was because the system was about to complete its upgrade. 3,650 days, only 1 day left. As the system's upgrade drew nearer, he was actually a bit restless. These past 10 years had been very comfortable. Although sometimes he felt bored, was this not just life? When he had nothing to do, he would take his women to stroll through nearby cities or go on outings to other countries. He did not know what would happen after the system upgrade, but it was highly likely he would still be a villain. Actually, he could not quite describe his feelings. He did not want to be one anymore, because he had become much lazier, and being a villain too much was boring. But he also somewhat wanted to continue being a villain. He had to find something to do, did he not? So, his mood at this moment was complex. Saying he was preoccupied was not wrong. Seeing Cao Chuan not answer, Bu Jinyan said angrily, "You are just too scheming. I have been married to you for almost 10 years, and together for over a decade, but even now I cannot say I understand you much." Humph. She huffed, "Do not think I do not know. Yaoer is secretly with you now, and there is Si-Han." Cao Chuan rolled his eyes. Initially, she was worried about him being preoccupied, seemingly comforting him, but the last 2 sentences turned into a threat again. She was threatening him with those girls' matters. Although it was nothing, it probably would not sound good if it got out. Cao Chuan laughed. "How scheming can I be? The main thing is, you are such a big dummy. If I told you some things, you would not understand." "You?" Bu Jinyan was furious. "I am a big dummy? You married a dummy to be your consort? Is it not because I pitied you? Get lost. My body is heavy now, otherwise, I would kick you to death." Cao Chuan smiled, put his arm around her, and gave her a kiss, which made her quiet down. He gazed into the distance. "Some things always disturb my mind." "What is it?" Saying it out might make it better. Bu Jinyan tried her best to be the best listener. After a long silence, Cao Chuan slowly began, "Actually, I am a villain." Bu Jinyan nodded, "I can tell." Cao Chuan glared at her, "Do you still want to hear it or not?" "Yes, yes, yes, go on." Bu Jinyan nodded with a smile. Cao Chuan sighed at this big dummy. "My appearance is to take away women like you, steal the luck of the protagonist, and finally kill the protagonist." Bu Jinyan chuckled and nodded, but it was clear she was just humoring him. Although she did not know what he wanted to say, all this talk of villains and protagonists was nonsense. Cao Chuan naturally saw through her thoughts. "Damn it. You believe lies. This is one of the rare times in my life I am telling a big truth, and you actually do not believe me, and you are even humoring me. Later you will say I am scheming? Are you sure I am scheming? Or are you just dumb? Forget it." Too lazy to tell her. The secret of being a villain, he had better keep it. He knew it himself. If he told her, she would not listen, and even if she listened, she would not understand, and if she did not understand, she would not believe. Ding. System upgrade complete. Multiple planes are linking. The main plane is not affected. Host can choose to enter any plane and continue your adventure life. Early the next morning, Cao Chuan was woken by the system's voice. Through a simple understanding, he grasped the new gameplay, which was completely different from before. The various planes could not fuse, only connect. In other words, he had entered the so-called infinite flow mode. He could enter any novel background world, collect villain luck, and after collecting it, he could leave and go to the next world. Of course, because there was now a main plane, he could choose to go or not to go. There were no problems with not going. As long as he did not lack luck, he would not need to contend with other children of the plains. New world. Hello, new world. However, let us talk about it later. Cao Chuan rolled over and continued to catch up on sleep. He did not lack any luck right now, so he would think about it when he got bored. Moreover, making someone a villain first thing in the morning, is there something seriously wrong with that? Bu Yao beside him snuggled closer, finding a comfortable position. She mumbled a few words. The end. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this series. If you did, please consider joining our community by hitting the subscribe button and dropping a like. It really helps the channel grow. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.